Oh no, chapter 9 is Tan's racism. But yeah, the thoughts kind of got shorter and shorter and shorter as I went on.
You're not the only one.
And then the last 10 chapters I didn't even make notes on. I just chapter 25 to end, thoughts, same as the rest of the book.
Welcome to the Canon Fodder Podcast, episode 1.
Welcome to the Canon Fodder Podcast, episode 1, where we are covering Mass Effect Andromeda, Nexus Uprising. What'd you think?
There's too many colons in that title.
Yeah, there's a lot of colons in that title.
Yeah. There's more colons in that title than there are between the two of us.
No, we have the same amount of colons. There's two colons.
Two copies of the book.
Yeah, there's 4 colons total in this
Too many colons.
Yeah. The book was written by Jason M. Hugh and K.C. Alexander. 2 different authors for the same book. A little bit of overview of the book in the writing style. I mean, I could definitely tell a difference between the 2 writing styles.
Oh yeah. And I think we could probably pinpoint the chapters, and we're going to talk about this, where there are certain turning points in quality throughout this book.
Oh yeah.
Where Huffer Alexander just took over and went to clean up this mess. Because this book is a radioactive slag heap in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
With a really long half-life. So, Kyle and I, at this point, have both finished Mass Effect Andromeda, so here's your cursory one and only warning. We are going to be discussing in-depth spoilers for the game Mass Effect Andromeda, as well as its tie-in novel, which is Nexus Uprising.
Yeah.
So, as far as Mass Effect goes, Mass Effect Andromeda, what did you think of the game?
The game started off really slow.
It is
really
true statement.
Really slow. I'm probably a bit of a bigger Mass Effect fan than you are. I mean, you were the one who introduced me to the game way back when the first one was out.
Where would you put on your top 5 game series? I could tell you I'd put it at 3.
I would probably put it at 2.
Really?
Yeah.
What's above that? Halo?
No, not anymore.
Ooh.
After 5, not anymore. Yeah, the game starts off really, really slow. I mean, it tries to throw you into the action right away with the Hyperion just...
Whoa, no, I'm not going to let you wiggle away from that. What's your favorite game series? You said 2. What's above that? Are you going to say Minecraft?
No, I'm not going to say Minecraft. Although I am playing Minecraft at the moment.
I have a feeling there's a dirty secret here he doesn't want to admit.
Honestly, it's the rebooted Tomb Raider series.
Really?
Yes.
That I would never have guessed in a million years.
You know, honestly, at this point, I have not played Rise of the Tomb Raider yet, or I'm going to. It's on my list of games to play, but...
You really like the new one that much?
Yeah, the reboot was fantastic.
I haven't touched it. I don't think I've ever played a Tomb Raider game.
I'd never played the Tomb Raider games either. The only experience I had was the same experience that everyone has of one of the Tomb Raiders with the mansion and the training area in the mansion.
I never did any of that.
Knocking the old guy over and locking him in a closet.
What? Are you playing a game or are you committing armed robbery?
No, there's a butler that'll follow you around, and if you go into the mansion, you can, knock him over. I think you can knock him over, but I know you can lock him in a closet. It's hilarious. But that was my only experience, and I started, on a whim, I started playing the new Tomb Raider, and absolutely loved it.
Huh. I'd put Halo at number 1, and I would just ignore Halo 5. It doesn't exist.
I can't.
I can, just like I can ignore those movies which should not be named that threatened to ruin my childhood before I grew up a little bit.
You mean The Hobbit?
No, not The Hobbit, Kyle.
Oh.
No, you can go right back to Helheim there. No, I mean the Phantom Menace of my childhood. I can't even name them. They were a ghostly threat.
Those are bad.
That's why. But you know what? It didn't ruin A New Hope. I still have A New Hope for the new ones, too.
Yeah, I do, too.
So Halo 5 was a shart.
Hopefully 343 gets their stuff together. I hope so.
Hey, you know what? I just... CE 2, 3, 4 even, and Reach and ODST are great games. So, anyway, we'll get to those books eventually in one of these episodes, but... Yeah, I'd say Halo, and then I would reserve a floating spot for my number 2. Because, I mean, you could pull Mass Effect up there maybe sometimes until it becomes a different galaxy. We're going to have that conversation in a second. If not that, maybe the Civ games. Yeah. I've not pumped as many hours into the Civ games, or any other series but the Civ games.
Oh, I know. And my major experience was 4.
Mine was 5.
Yours was 5.
It was like 3 obsessive years of. I could have learned I did learn a new language while I was playing it, but I could have learned 2 new languages.
Yeah, I sunk a lot of hours into 4.
Yeah.
I love 5. I haven't played 6 yet. I haven't bought it yet.
You know what? You can on your newly running GPU. You can run it at high.
I can run it at high. I can run 5 at high, too. I can run 5 at high on the Intel.
That's a very powerful Intel.
Yeah, it is.
And then below Civ would be Mass Effect, which, I mean, I introduced you to the game. I remember being heartbroken when you kept it for like 2 whole quarters of our senior year. I wanted it back. And then when I tried to ask it for you back, you gave me guff about it.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to give it back because you still weren't quite done.
No, I sunk a lot of hours into the first one right after you introduced me.
Yeah.
And 2 came out when I was in the military.
Really? Yeah, it would have. It would have been right after you got out of basic, right?
Yeah. It was about 6 months after I got out of basic. It came out, I think.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I distinctly remember playing it in my dorm room on my tiny little, like 13-inch LCD screen, pumping it through 3-foot floor speakers.
Holy cow. And then 3 came out at the end of college, and we were all horrified.
What color did you pick?
I saved it right beforehand, and I went back and ate all the chiclets. Didn't like how any of them tasted.
No.
So as we discuss this book and also the game that it's attached to and discuss whether or not the book is an effective tie-in novel, if it actually expands the canon in any meaningful way, which is the principal point of the show, it's coming from a place of fierce love for a series, because like Mass Effect is up there with Star Trek and also with Star Wars as far as like my favorite sci-fi series go. So I really liked the first game. I really liked the second game.
The third one was a letdown.
Yeah. I mean, it was strong up until the end. They fixed some things that were bad about it. And it was a good shooter, and the multiplayer was absolutely engrossing.
That was the multiplayer and that was phenomenal. You and I sunk so many hours into that. Yep. I booted up 3 recently and kind of jumped in before Andromeda released and jumped into the multiplayer a little bit. And I mean, it's exactly what I remember it was. However, all of my characters were named after Chinese dishes. Like I had like Egg Foo Young and General So. Like, my God, what was I thinking?
Well, those were dark years.
Those were dark years indeed. But anyway, guess I'll dive into the kind of synopsis of the game.
Yep, so we're going to do the section now where Kyle's going to summarize the game, and then we're going to figure out whether or not this actually helps.
So, the game opens with the Hyperion crashing into some unknown energy force. The Hyperion is the human arc.
Yep, and there are 4 arcs, except for 2 little mentions in the game where there's really 5 arcs.
Yes, that's I'm going to bring that up.
Yep.
When we're going over the book, I have an issue.
Okay. Oh, I've got an issue too, Kyle. I've got a whole volume here.
Yeah, so do I. But it's 20,000 humans in cryostasis on this ship to start populating Andromeda.
Yep. So they're going from the Milky Way to the Andromeda Galaxy.
Specifically the Helios cluster, which was a point of confusion for both of us.
Yes, it was.
We had an argument for 2 days.
Yeah.
About
whether or not it was actually like the full galaxy map or if it was just a Helios cluster, yeah.
They refer to it as the cluster, but when you go into the map, it's the galaxy map. Very bad design.
I'm Travis Knight, by the way.
Yeah, I'm Kyle Newcomb.
We completely forgot about that. Whatever, freshman episode. A little bit of galactic structure here. Galaxies they're formed of between 200 and 600 billion stars. That's billion with 9 zeros at the end. Conservatively, you can guess that there's between 3 and 10 planets around those stars, unless they're binaries, in which case we don't have a whole lot of data. So you're looking at upwards of 1 trillion planets. Now, the distance across a galaxy is about 120,000 light years. That means that if you were to turn on a light bulb at one end of the galaxy at the 12 o'clock mark, it would take 120,000 years for whoever is standing on the other side of the galaxy for some reason, waiting to see the flicker of your light bulb turn on.
Even Krogan don't live that long.
No, nobody lives that long, except maybe the Reapers, but who knows, right? They're unreliable narrators. So the people in the Milky Way, for reasons that we're going to have to get into because it's integral to the book and also to the game, decide to leave the Milky Way and to go to Andromeda, which is another galaxy that's spiraling into the Milky Way over the course of the next several billion years, several hundred billion years probably. It's going to collide with the Milky Way and destroy both of them, most likely. So you're looking at transplanting 200,000 people maybe between the arcs, the 5 arcs, which is 100,000, and then whatever's on the Nexus. We know that there must have been colonists on the Nexus from the book.
Yeah.
So you're transplanting maybe 500,000 people from one galaxy to another when you could have just went and hit on any of the 100 billion at a minimum conservative number, 2 trillion planets, and that's excluding moons. It's excluding things that might be hidden on, inside worlds that are artificial, and all of the other ways that you could have hidden from the Reapers, which is the real bug in the bag here, is that by the time that this book and game happen, they know that the Reapers are probably a thing. Commander Shepard in the games is supposed to be like peddling his story about how they're going to come back every 50,000 years, and it looks like that super volcano is about to blow, and here come the Reapers. So
we should note at this point that Mass Effect Andromeda, when the Arcs and the Nexus launch, was between Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3.
So there's no reason at all for them to be moving from one galaxy to another. That doesn't make any sense. Even with the Reapers as a thing, it just doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so counterpoint.
Okay.
Now, you only find this out if you buy one of the DLCs in Mass Effect 3.
Mm-hmm.
The Prothean DLC. During his story and when you talk to him and everything like that, as you're uncovering more on the last cycle that the Reapers reaped, he says that the Reapers spent hundreds of years going through the entire galaxy, combing every advanced civilization. So even if they were to just hide on a moon in orbit of a gas giant, from what Javik said, they're still going to be reaped.
Counterpoint.
Okay.
Go into stasis just like they do in Andromeda, and go in an incredibly eccentric orbit that takes about 1,000 years. Come back, wake up, nothing's changed. Now you get to re-establish your place in the galaxy, and you don't spend 600 years stupidly trying to colonize another galaxy and imposing your colonial nonsense on another galaxy.
I agree. To a certain extent, I agree. The premise of the game is shaky at best. And it makes it so BioWare doesn't have to acknowledge the end of 3.
Fair enough. Yep. That's really what this is.
Yeah,
right?
with 3, they wrote themselves into a corner, and there was no way out except let's go to another galaxy.
Yep. As much as I don't want to admit it, you're right. They should have just picked a canon ending instead. Everybody gets to become cyborgs or whatever it was, because the end result is the same. The relays are destroyed, and everybody's down to having no relays but minimal FTL travel. So it is kind of the same thing, because the crazy thing is when the Arcs and the Nexus and everything that Kyle's about to describe arrive in Andromeda, they got the same level of technology anyway, which is awful convenient.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. It's almost a shame they bothered to do it in Andromeda and didn't just say Mass Effect 600 years later.
Yeah.
So, we decide we're going to move house and go from one galaxy to another, and that is the setting, the premise for Mass Effect Andromeda, the game, which Kyle's going to flesh out now.
The Hyperion arrives, hits what we find out later is called the Scourge from the next, when the Hyperion actually does get to the Nexus.
Yep. Which is like a big tangled web of space stuff that stretches solar system to solar system.
Yes. Is this where you meet your rider for the first time? He's in the med lab. Is it before they hit the
It must
Scourge?
be, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they hit the Scourge, and then Crash wakes everybody up, and Alec Ryder, who's your character's father, no matter which gender you play, he wakes you up and says, like, yo, we got a problem. You got to come with me.
No, I think you're already awake, because you get that scene of anti-gravity after the Hyperion hit the Scourge.
Really?
And that's when you first meet Cora.
Oh, right.
Cora.
This sounds unprofessional, but the beginning of the game is just so weird and boring.
Yeah, I didn't really pay attention.
I don't blame you. I mean, I was sitting there, and I knew we had to take notes on this, and it just didn't stick.
No.
Whereas in the first Mass Effect, what happens in the first Mass Effect's, like, opening 10 minutes?
You're on the Normandy, you meet Nihilus, the Spectre, you find out that you're going to become the first human Spectre. Nihilus is there to evaluate you. You land on Eden Prime, and you start figuring out what happened.
Yep. Then you get that little quick tour of the solar system where you shoot past Mars and Jupiter and Saturn, you hit the relay. Nihilus does the funny Turian face clicky thing. Like, all that is in my head for years.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell you the first 15 minutes of Mass Effect Andromeda. It just doesn't stick.
Nope.
I remember Liam's a butt. And that other guy that dies. The Jenkins of the game.
The Jenkins of the game?
Yeah, there's like some other dude that's with you that just doesn't make it out of the first mission. He gets blown away by the Ket. The first run-in with the Ket.
Oh, yeah.
The Jenkins of the game. Except he's not Jenkins, because Jenkins does a dance when he dies.
Alec Ryder is, assembling the Pathfinder team. They're arguing about protocol and everything like that, and Alec, or the captain of the Hyperion, says no. Protocol states that we go to Habitat 7 if there's an emergency.
Which is the designated planet that the human ark, or the human colony ark, is supposed to go to.
Yes, after it docks with the Nexus.
Okay, so in the game's premise, they're all supposed to arrive in the same place.
Yes, they're all supposed to arrive at the Nexus hub.
Which is like a big space city.
The Citadel, essentially.
Yeah.
The human Citadel. Not the human Citadel, this
Council Citadel.
Yeah, this cycle-built Citadel. Not an inherited Citadel like the actual Citadel.
But because of the Scourge or something else, they all arrive in different places. They're all lost in space.
Yep.
So then they decide to go to Habitat 7. Habitat 7 is destroyed
by the Scourge, yeah, and they make mention of floating mountains like a dozen times.
Yeah.
And then your shuttle crashes, and you see, and you fix your helmet. I remember looking at that and going, "Did that actually work?"
No, that wouldn't work. It's just a convenient way to raise drama for no reason. It's unearned drama, folks.
Yep. So you go, you meet Liam.
Liam's one of your crew members. Not a character in the book because there's very little linkage.
Yeah.
Liam's the worst of the crew members. Well,
I don't know.
I'd say Cora's worse.
Cora's worse.
I think Liam's hopeless optimism is probably what makes him so great.
I only drank a beer with him on the couch. That was as far as I got with him.
I played soccer with him.
I ignored him.
So we meet your team, right? And we're bouncing around at Habitat 7 and it's floating mountains and it's Space Scourge. And then you get to the
meet the
ruins.
Ket.
Oh, yeah, the Ket.
Yeah, you meet the Ket.
Kyle, what's the difference between the Ket and the Covenant from Halo? The Ket are uglier.
Yeah. They're bonier.
They look like cauliflower people in space armor with monkey faces.
And they're genetic anomalies?
They're genetic hybrids.
Okay, we'll go with that.
The Ket are a collective, I guess super species is probably the best way to describe them, in that they comprise many species that have been genetically hybridized together
to
produce
the Ket,
lowercase k. And so they're the main antagonist in the game, the force working against you. But they're essentially just the Covenant. They're a religious oligarchy that behaves mysteriously, and they are researching for misuse ancient alien relics that are capable of destroying vast tracts of space.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I didn't quite make the connection, but yeah, I can see that.
The Ket are bland, like plain cauliflower in space armor. Very bland. But, which is a little cooler, you meet the first of the Remnant ruins, which I thought was pretty cool. Visually, graphically, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, visually, very, very impressive.
So after fighting to recover your team, then you meet the Ket. The Ket blow away one of your teammates, and then we end up at the Remnant ruins. And then what happens?
Alec Ryder, the human pathfinder, he hacks the door to the Remnant ruins somehow. We not quite sure how.
Sam must do it.
Sam's got to do it.
Just convenient, but whatever. We're moving on. Stupid tech.
He goes into the vault, the monolith, or whatever that is.
Yeah, call it whatever you want to call it.
I think it was a monolith.
He goes into the Forerunner ruin.
Yeah.
Even the same shaped doors. Just saying. I'm just saying.
He goes in. He activates the vault, or I think it was a vault because it's got the purification field. But whatever. And him and your character get blown out by this purification field off a cliff. Your helmet is shattered. There is no convenient Omni-tool fix this time.
So Dad takes his helmet off.
Yeah, Dad takes his helmet off, puts it on you, and you hear mumbling. And that's it.
Okay. So before you move on, I want to, because we've talked about this in text message, this is where the memory trigger thing comes into play. And I want to bring this up right now, because it's going to change the way that we talk about the book a little bit.
Okay.
When you complete, and this is a major spoiler for those of you that care. I don't know why you would, but for those of you that care, this is a major spoiler. when you complete the memory, trigger side quest collectathon.
Before you finish, I have not completed it. I hate collectathons.
I do too, but I did it to be thorough for the sake of trying to draw connections between the book. That's my job in this enterprise.
Yeah.
As you collect them, you find out that he was developing Sam illegally. He lost his job. He was having issues with his kids. But you also find out, more importantly, what happened to Scott and Sarah's mother and Alec Ryder's wife. The main family's mother slash wife.
Yeah. I knew she had a disease.
She had an advanced degenerative neurological disease that was killing her. What you find out through this quest line is that he has chosen not to let her die. He developed Sam to basically try to take care of her and to reduce the impact of the disease. Sam was able to figure out that you could put her in stasis and halt the disease. She's alive on the human arc.
Really?
Yes. There's more. Not only that, but Alec Ryder was contacted by a third party, not Gian Garson, who founded the Andromeda Initiative, but he and Gian were contacted by a third party that is currently undisclosed called the Benefactor.
Yes, I did get that
who
far.
Effectively paid to get them out of the Andromeda Galaxy. And here's where it ties closer into the previous 3 games. This individual knew that the Reapers were coming, which makes it one of 2 people in the Mass Effect universe. It's either the Elusive Man or the Shadow Broker.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the Shadow Broker.
Because, and this is what you got to think about, there's all those audio logs of Liara T'Soni around. Who's the Shadow Broker at the end of 2? Liara T'Soni. Who's got all the money and information? Liara T'Soni. So it's either her or her human counterpart, the Elusive Man, decided to bankroll this massive colonization enterprise, and they basically advanced the agenda by like 10 years to get him out of there.
Yeah.
And so Alec Ryder doesn't know who it is, but he knows he's on the hook, and they've got audio records from when the human arc first came back active after they popped out of warp or whatever that was. And they know that something devastating happened in the Milky Way galaxy. He chose not to inform the other humans.
Okay.
So when you finish that quest line, you find out that A, Mom is alive, and B, Alec Ryder knew that something really bad happened to the Milky Way. And it goes back to basically the events in the middle of the game of 3. Sony talks about how they're trying to build the weapon to stop the Reapers, but they're not sure if it's going to work. They haven't done it yet. And she makes her final sign-off. She'd been sending him audio transmissions that entire time. And he chose to withhold that, but passed it on to Scott in a last-minute attempt to basically save his wife's life so that knowledge couldn't be used against his kids. And so they tied a lot of surprises in at the end of a collectathon that are integral to the book, because I got probably more cutscene time with my twin than you did, because half those cutscenes where you're talking about Mom is through the collectathon.
Yeah, I had very little interaction with my twin.
I had a lot. I still couldn't tell you what her purpose was in the story, but I had a lot.
It was the motivation for the last mission. That's what it was.
That's motivation.
That's what her role was.
Unearned drama.
Yeah, unearned drama.
So Alec Ryder dies. He was the human Pathfinder, and he gives, for all of those reasons previously stated, Mom's alive, you need to know, and also we know what happened in the Milky Way now. He gave the role of Pathfinder, which involves special access to the whole colonization efforts, artificial intelligence, SAM, don't know what that stands for. Systems Automated Machine, I don't know, it's a guess.
I don't know.
It's an AI, though, called Sam. He gives it over to Scott, and that is basically when the game really begins and stops being tutorial mode for the most part.
You need to stop naming the character.
Who?
Scott.
I don't care.
Some people may... When we refer to Scott, we are referring to your character specifically.
In any case, he gives it over to the awake and alive child. And that gives you access to Sam.
Yep.
And the game begins.
Sam reprograms his brain?
I don't know.
Through the implant? That was the impression that I got.
It seemed to me like he took over like kind of some of the autonomic systems. Make him faster, make him smarter, make him, I don't know.
Be able to change classes at will.
I hated that system.
Oh,
it's so messy.
Terrible. You find all this stuff out. You start going through the main campaign. You settle Eos, which is unimpressive.
Tatooine.
The Hyperion eventually makes it to the Nexus.
Yep.
However, so the Hyperion meets up with the Nexus, and then you meet the director of the initiative.
Number 8.
You meet Tan, you meet Addison, who is director of colonial affairs, and you meet Kesh, who is the superintendent of the...
Yep.
the Nexus.
3 major characters in the game. Or
Yep.
in the book, I mean.
Now, before you started reading, or had you played the game before you met, or before you started reading the book?
Oh, boy.
Because I know I have.
I think I may have played the first hour or 2 of the game before I started the book, because I want to say I started them on the same day.
Okay,
I had decided to do this before I had decided to buy the game, hadn't I?
No,
No?
we bought it on the same day. We bought it release day.
I didn't buy the game release day. I bought it
Oh
a week
yeah,
later.
that's right.
Yeah,
I rented it release day and played on the Xbox.
Yeah, you had already started. You were much farther into it than I was.
Well,
and I was waffling. I think because when we went to Barnes & Noble that one day to buy the books, going to look for research for this project, I still hadn't bought the game. I think we bought the book before I bought the game. Or it was the same day, maybe.
Maybe.
But in any case, I hadn't played more than an hour or 2 before I started the book, because I started wondering when Sloane Kelly was going to show up on the Nexus.
Yeah.
Not knowing what was going to happen to her.
Yeah. However, the day we're recording, I will mention, I finished the book 20 minutes before you got here.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not lying.
It was a rough book. Plus, other things in my life kind of interfered a little bit, so
Yep.
I powered through the book last night until 1 o'clock, and
The next one is mercifully shorter.
good. Thank
Also, it's going to be a horror novel, so it's got to be better. We get to the Nexus. Nexus is, you said it's like this council citadel, but smaller, right?
I think it's smaller. I don't remember.
I like the design of the Nexus.
I do too.
Aesthetically.
I think
it
it was impressive.
Yeah.
Especially once you got all the arcs.
Yeah, sitting off that in the middle. Yeah, it definitely
Yeah.
looks like some weird spaceship hotel thing.
Yeah.
It looks cool.
Really impressive.
And what's up
Okay.
with the Nexus? What's going on there?
So we find out that when the Hyperion gets there, where the docking station for the arcs is completely dark.
No power, right?
No, minimal power.
Can we just agree on how stupid that is? They do have fusion reactors. Fusion reactor takes up the size of the back of a semi-rig, probably. We just agree on how stupid it is that they shipped this giant thing off with 6 different components missing, and they didn't have enough power.
To be fair, in the book, they had to jettison the reactor.
I forgot about that. I must have read right over that.
Yeah, they had to jettison the reactor. Sloane just kind of mentioned it in passing.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I do remember that.
And that really made
stick with me.
Really made Kesh angry.
Okay, so you got a space city in space that has no power, which is dangerous. But with the arrival of the Ark, now they've got a better generator, so they're able to bring up some of the power.
Yes. You wander through the docking station, the antechamber to the docking station.
Yeah.
And it's dark. You could boot up a VI.
Can I interject something here? I didn't expect that it was going to be dark, so I actually thought that was kind of cool. I was like, what the heck's going on here? Why isn't this place up and running? I thought that was kind of a neat moment. When I found out why, I was like, well, that's dumb, but...
Well, yeah, my first experience with it, I found it kind of interesting, kind of spooky. Like,
yeah.
Why are there no lights on? What's going on here?
Where is everyone?
Yeah, where is everyone? And then, same as you, when I found out what happened, I was like, really?
Yeah, I felt like that almost every single turning point in the game. And in the book, too, for what it's worth. We're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there. You run into Tan and Tan, Addison, and the point I was trying to make was I played the game before I read the book.
Yep.
I hated Tan. Could not stand him as a character in the game. Barely. I really only talked to him if I had to.
I primarily read the book before I played the game. Hated Tan. Only talked to him when I absolutely had to. Hey, Ryder, what are you doing?
Oh,
Ryder,
God,
stop that. I have a bad idea.
Which brings up a point. You and I talked about this through text message. Tan is the only character that we knew and it had a voice in the game that we
got a
read
distinct voice
in his voice, except for the couple lines that Drek had.
Yep.
He was the only one.
It's a very reedy, lispy,
nasally voice.
Yeah, it's really...
It's gritting.
It makes sense for a Solarian, and he's actually the guy that voiced him as a comedian whose name I'm missing right now, but whoo boy, it stands out in a solar system galaxy full of other accents, that is the one and only one quite like that.
Oh, speaking of accents, huge grinding issue when I first started this game. Huge grinding issue. Lexi, the Asari doctor, had a horrifying English accent.
It's Natalie Dormer. It's Marguerite Tyrell from Game of Thrones.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I'm 100% sure because we were looking her up for something else that we saw her in another movie, and I was like, whoa, she's in Mass Effect Andromeda. I didn't make the connection.
Horrifying British accent.
Yeah, it's again, sticks out like a sore thumb. Some of those celebrities they got to do the voice acting for are just wrong.
And Asari should not have a British accent.
I think she can have what kind of accent she wants, but I think it's all weird.
It threw me, and it threw me right out of the game.
I didn't talk to her unless I had to either.
Now, we talked about this in the prologue.
Yep.
That my suspension of disbelief is a lot better than yours because you're a writer, you're an English teacher, this is what you do for a living.
Yep.
That threw my suspension of disbelief right out the window. Gone anytime I had to talk to her.
It's interesting, too, because I'm hearing impaired, so I tend to play with and read the subtitles more than I do listen to what's going on. So, with Tan's, high-pitched voice, it was hard not to hear him. But with, most of the time I play with the volume very low because it's just not worth it for me to try and sort through those sounds.
Yeah.
I've got a degenerative hearing loss that's just, I was born with it. So, and I definitely don't play with my hearing aids in because any kind of electronic sounds like that, it sounds really tinny, like really electrified. So it's uncomfortable. So I just tend to play with the volume very low, or I listen to a podcast, or sometimes I just listen to the sound of the fan instead, and I read the subtitles. So for the most part, and that's probably why I didn't make the connection, is because I wasn't listening to her volume high enough to really distinguish her voice. Tan's voice is right within my optimum hearing range.
Very distinct voice.
Yeah.
Very, very distinct voice.
Lexi's voice is much lower.
Yeah. However, to that point, not a massive issue with the game, not game breaking, not
just awkward casting.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Strange and just out there. So you meet these three characters. I immediately hated Tan.
Yeah.
Immediately hated Tan. Absolutely loved Kesh right off the bat.
Awesome.
Kesh is an awesome character.
But see, I would have an opinion about Addison, but my face is tired.
Yeah, mine too. My eyes are a little buggy too. Mind you, this is pre-patch.
It's not much better after the patch.
Post-patch, her face still looks tired.
It doesn't look tired. It looks wooden. She looks like a poorly carven model. But anyway, so you meet the three major administrators of the game, which are in turn the three major administrators of the book.
Yes. Minus Sloan.
Yeah, and the Nexus is in real bad shape.
Yes.
Your arrival is like a miracle because they had given you up for dead because it's been at least a year at that point.
It's been 14 months.
14 months at that point? Okay, so your arrival is a game changer for them because they were running low on supplies, and part of that is why the book exists, is because they had gone through an uprising.
Yes. Yes, they've lost a significant portion of their crew and the Nakmor Krogan clan.
Yep.
Due to what happens in Nexus Uprising, the book. So you go through, you colonize 6 planets, which I do agree with you there. How many habitable planets are there in that cluster alone?
Likely several to 10,000.
Minus the Scourge. Even with the Scourge.
Moons, people. Moons. Don't forget about moons. They're well shielded by their parent gas giants.
There's
64 moons around Jupiter as of current tally, to my best knowledge. And I'm an astronomy buff, so it's at least 64. There's like 100-something moons in the solar system total. That's 100-something little worlds you could live on.
It was nuts. 6 worlds you would colonize.
Yep.
And they were all focused around the remnant monoliths and the remnant vaults. So
which we learn is part of this vast terraforming network, which is aesthetically in the game very cool.
oh, gorgeous!
I really love those huge, immersive, three-dimensional star map holograms. They did that better than
Halo.
Yeah, better than Halo, better than any movie I can think of, with maybe the sole exception being Prometheus, which is the one good thing I can say about that craptastic movie.
I've never seen it.
Well, that scene where he where Ryder or she Ryder wanders through that holographic star map is basically pulled right out of Prometheus.
Oh, okay.
So
Tan and Addison and all that and all them tell you that they tried settling colonies on Eos and failed.
And now it's your turn, white man, or whoever you happen to be playing.
Yes. Now it's your turn, Pathfinder. Okay. You go to Eos, you find PB. That's where you find PB at the first monolith.
Yep, she's investigating the ancient aliens.
Suddenly, and you can immediately manipulate an alien technology.
That's because of Sam.
Okay, I'll give that point. So, you go, you activate all the monoliths. If you don't get distracted, I got distracted a lot.
Yeah, this is a huge problem with the game. They went from a relatively an open but linear game to an open world with almost a non-linear story.
Almost as bad as Ubisoft's games.
Yeah, it's a major step back in terms of storytelling quality. And so...
even a huge step back from Inquisition.
So, and I haven't played that yet. It's one of my bicycle games that's coming up once I get through Halo.
I've played a little bit of Inquisition. I got frustrated because I got lost in one of the maps.
Kyle, what is the diameter of the Earth? Do you know? 10,000 miles, roughly. Is it not super convenient that every single map has all three of the terraforming monoliths within like 10 square kilometers of each other?
Yeah, that bothered me too.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that bothered me too.
So this is a major step back from Inquisition?
Yeah, from the little bit I played.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'm looking forward to playing Inquisition then. That's what I've learned from this conversation.
Fantastic. I played probably 10 hours.
I wonder if there's a book with that game.
I don't know. Probably. It's a BioWare game.
Conversation for another day. Don't you throw that at me.
This book is published by BioWare.
Really? No, it's published by Titan Books.
Anyway, so you go, you activate all the monoliths, you go into the vault, and this vault's huge.
Yeah.
This vault is massive.
Really cool looking.
Beautiful. Like, I got a very distinct Halo vibe when I was going through the vault for the first time.
It's hard to not ape perfection.
So, you settle Eos, then you move on to Havaro.
Havaro's a jungle world.
And then you move...
You meet the Angara somewhere in here.
At some point, yeah. You go through, you settle all these worlds, and one of my biggest issues with all of these vaults was whether none of them were as impressive as the one on Eos.
Nope.
None of them.
Nope.
On the scale of Eos.
Mass Effect Andromeda pulls a first date effect, where it shows up dressed to the nines for the first date or two, and then it wears nothing, it freeballs in sweatpants for the rest of your relationship.
It was horrible. Just a terrible...
Right up
design.
Basically until Meridian.
Yeah.
The last mission. I remember being distinctly impressed, and we're going to get there shortly here, but the final mission it took about until then for me to go, whoa. You know, and with a small holdover on Eladin, which is one of these planets, and I remember standing at the base of that like juggernaut that had crashed into the stand and going,
yeah,
man, imagine if this was a Star Destroyer. It would look a lot like A New Hope, but it's still freaking cool.
Yeah. We skipped over the main protagonist.
Ryder?
The antagonist. I'm sorry.
The cat.
Not protagonist.
Covenant.
Not protagonist, antagonist. The Archon.
Oh my god.
The Archon!
Yeah, the Great Prophet.
Yeah.
Prophet of Truth.
Who has temper tantrums.
Yeah, he does.
The first time you meet him, I distinctly got the temper tantrum vibe.
Yep.
You texted me after you had the scene with the Archon and said that you more got the I got a really poop vibe.
Yeah. He seemed constipated and angry. Cauliflower monkey face man was real angry with you.
So, the second time I played it on my PC run through, my two PC run throughs, one with my file and Jen's file, and both times I couldn't watch that scene and see a temper tantrum. I could only see he's got a poop.
The big bad of the game.
That you
mostly just really needs to sit down and let one out.
That was a disappointing antagonist.
Yeah. As opposed to like the Prophet of Truth or even the Prophet of Regret in Halo, which is going to be the counterpoint. Because, I mean, in both games, you battle an alien collective of zealot religious lunatics that are trying to wipe you out because you're the only ones able to interface with the ancient alien technology that's capable of destroying vast tracts of galactic real estate.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other better counterpoint here that I can think of.
Yeah.
And I would honestly say that the Prophet of Truth is a much better Archon.
Yeah.
Even though he's a deluded maniac.
Yep.
Although he's not, really, if you read the books. They know exactly what they're doing, but they're willing to commit species-wide suicide.
Yeah. But anyway, so you settle the 6 planets, doing the same thing over and over again.
Yep.
Activate the 3 monoliths that are within 10 square kilometers of each
Very
other.
video gamey. So video gamey.
And then you do the vault. You find, if you do the Ark missions, you eventually find the Asari Ark. I fired the Pathfinder.
Yep, me too.
I fired the Pathfinder.
The new one was pretty cool.
Yep.
The younger girl.
Yep.
Younger Asari. I don't know if they have gender that way.
Find what's left of the Turian one?
Yeah, mine, they had jettisoned most of the pods around the sector.
Yeah, same here.
And they were still looking for him at the end, which I thought was nice that they were able to keep that thread going. You know, they were going to do whatever they could to expand their search net.
Yep. And you also find the Solarian one, which is tethered to a cat ship.
Yep. I like this mission.
I did too. I thought it was very well designed.
Did you keep the Solarian Pathfinder?
No, I kept the Krogan. I saved the Krogan.
So now I did the opposite, and I took nothing but guff from them for the duration of the game for letting those couple Krogan die. And I kept the Solarian Pathfinder.
I saved the Krogan.
Interesting. I figured they were military scouts. They knew what they signed up for and the risk. The Solarian civilians and also the Pathfinder that she was trying to save the civilians were just civilians. So I thought, let the military guys go. This is what they signed up for. And I kind of regret that in hindsight because I felt like I had given Tan what he wanted and I want nothing but to crush him.
Yeah, yeah. After that mission, you find the location of Meridian in that.
And how would you describe what Meridian is as like a narrative thing?
Essentially the key to the Halo rings.
Oh no. Oh no, it's an arc.
The key to the Halo rings.
Oh.
That is all I can think of.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh man.
You didn't even make that connection, did you?
I didn't want what I like to be sullied by a lesser thing.
It's the key to the Halo rings.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, it is. It's the center of the terraforming or terra-destroying networks. Fair enough.
So, you go to Meridian, which was another really cool mission.
Yeah, it was.
Impressive.
Meridian is a Dyson sphere-shaped moon.
No.
Oh, right, the city.
The city.
Right.
Is the Dyson sphere.
So Meridian is the
Meridian
spark
is
plug.
the spark plug. Oddly enough, shaped just like the weird key in Halo 1 that activates the ring.
Index.
The index, yes.
Good stories stick with you, folks.
Oddly shaped the same way. Only giant space station sized.
Which was cool. That was, and the space battle above that was very impressive. It pushed the boundaries on Mass Effect cutscenes and made me excited for the first time in like 20 hours.
Yeah. Like, I put that battle on par with the battle with Sovereign.
Yeah, and it's the smaller of the two big space battles in the game, yeah.
Yeah.
It really was in terms of like graphical just scale of the cinematic.
Yep. You complete Meridian.
And just to back up, because it's been like 25 minutes since we started this. You crash land, your dad dies, you discover, after you become the one person who can save everyone, you discover that your cultural center is essentially powerless, and then you embark on a terraforming quest and discover an ancient alien terraforming network, which leads you into a race against time against the main antagonist. Stop me when I'm wrong here, but the race against time against the main...
race against time in quotes.
Yeah, because I floated back and forth like a vagabond.
Yep.
Aimlessly against the Archon, who's the main antagonist, who also wants to access the core of this terraforming network to weaponize it, and you want to use it to create nice worlds, because you're a good person.
Golden worlds. Which that term was used far too much in this game.
Yeah. So, and then this leads you to the center of that, what you think is the center of that, based on some couple interactions with the antagonist, which is Meridian, which is a dagger-shaped space city.
You almost die. The character almost dies because the Archon has now taken your twin and taken the Hyperion, and oh my god, things hit the fan. Suddenly your character can control an entire Remnant fleet by himself without Sam's assistance, and he was struggling with a door 5 minutes earlier.
We get some serious breakdowns in terms of logic to make the story wrap up, and wrap up rapidly it does.
Yeah. Suddenly, he can control an entire Remnant fleet.
So they're able to bring an entire Remnant fleet up. I don't know if these are like cargo ships or what, but it's a fleet.
It comes
out of nowhere.
Yeah. So this leads to the second major space battle, which is extremely impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Yeah, it's really pretty. And there was enough story woven into the mechanics of it that I was like sitting there glued to the screen. Like when he runs near the Scourge to bring the Scourge at the Archon, I was like, oh, this is actually really cool how they're using some of these things that...
Yes.
You know.
Also on Meridian, we failed to mention the twist of the game, quote in quotes.
That Meridian isn't Meridian?
No, that Meridian, that the Remnant, for one, the Angarans are genetically engineered to survive in this harsh cluster, and that the Scourge was a technological accident?
No, it's not. That's what the game leads you to believe, and then it's just a sideways mention, but if you're not listening closely, you find out that somebody had weaponized it. So they had misused... And this is like really confusing, because like the mystery of the Halo rings went on for games. What does it really do? We know it is devastating, but why would they build this thing? Why would they build this massive, suicide machine in space? And then we find out there's 7 of them, and that's a core mystery of the game. But what I learned by just standing around, basically just listening to the game in the side conversations, is that somebody must have used the Remnant network to create the Scourge as a weapon. So they forced it to destroy itself.
Okay.
And they start talking about whoever built the Scourge. Liam says it in one of the side conversations with him. Whoever built the Scourge using a Remnant network is some serious mother effers.
Gotcha. Okay. The Archon has control of the Hyperion and your sister or brother, your twin. And suddenly Dyson Sphere.
Yep.
Planet-sized Dyson Sphere.
Moon-sized Dyson Sphere.
Moon-sized Dyson Sphere, sorry.
And a Dyson Sphere, for those who don't know, is a shell built around a star, or you could, I guess, just build it around a space with habitable terrain built on the inside of it. So imagine an egg. On the inside of the egg is farmland and cities, etc. On the outside of it is the hull of this vast space megastructure and naked vacuum.
Yes.
So it's an inverted world.
Which I thought was impressive to do a moon-sized Dyson Sphere.
I thought it looked pretty cool.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Halo did it first.
Did they?
Yeah, they did. It's part of the Ghosts of Onyx. We'll get there, folks.
That's right! Anyway.
Kyle, this game is a really bad Halo game.
Yeah, it kind of is. Wow. All the comparisons.
I can't help it. These things don't exist in a vacuum.
No. But anyway, so the Hyperion eventually crash lands after the big boss fight with the Archon, which was horrible.
It's just, like everything else, it felt half-cooked.
Yeah, half-baked. Absolutely half-baked. It was, go to this terminal, go to that terminal, go to this terminal. All right, we're done.
Yep.
After fighting an onslaught of Remnant. This is where the choices, I think, from the game kind of culminate for the end of this one. You killed Sloan.
Yep, I had my boyfriend, Reyes Vidal. Yep.
Okay.
Or as I called him, Mexican Han Solo.
Did Reyes come and help you?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
He was actually physically there, too.
Okay. Did the Krogan come and help you?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
I didn't see them, but I heard them.
Okay. Was there Nexus security there?
Yep, because Kandros, they showed a really cool cutscene of Kandros flying around and shooting them, arcade style.
Yes. Okay. Did the Angara come and help?
Yep, Angara were there. The Moshai were there.
Okay. So the ending, so your choices apparently don't matter.
Well, I did all those things. So I worked for the Moshai to benefit her. I worked for Rhea. Was Reyes there for you or Sloan?
Sloan was there for me.
So that one does matter. And did you work on the side of the Krogan?
Yes.
Okay, I did that too. So
Drax loyalty mission
was awesome.
Oh, fantastically written.
Yeah.
I want to meet that writer and shake his hand.
Yeah, that guy did a good job with a
Kool-Aid
poison
man.
potato.
Kool-Aid man. Hi, guys.
Yep.
Oh my god. Drac is a fantastic character.
I also had the Asari Pathfinder and the Solarian Pathfinder and the Turian Pathfinder as well.
Yes, so did I.
Okay, and that would have decided who, based on who you let live and who you promoted, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Or if you'd found the arcs at all.
Did you have the Nexus, or not the Outcast show up in space? Outcasts. Yeah, I had a bunch of Outcasts in like shuttles popping in space to help.
I think so.
I think they were.
I don't know. That space battle was so busy.
Yeah, not that I'm complaining.
No,
gorgeous.
Neither am I. It was absolutely beautiful. So you do this fight. You save your twin.
Yep, inside the Dyson Sphere, you defeat the big bad guy, or the Archon.
Yep.
Who became Dr. Octopus for a little while.
Yep. And then credits roll.
Really suddenly.
Suddenly, yes.
I was like, that's it?
Yeah. Yeah. I was too. I was like, all right. So, I don't know about you, but I didn't sit through the entire credits.
I did.
I skipped the credits.
I was vaguely curious to look at how many different teams worked in this game and who the different voice actors were and that kind of thing.
Fair enough.
Lord, this was a vast project.
I mean, it's been in development for quite a while.
5 years, yeah.
Quite a
lot of different writing teams.
Yep.
A lot of different visual design teams.
You then get the post-credit scene.
Yep.
Which is one of the Archon's cardinals, and that's it. And he's overlooking the Dyson Sphere from ship.
Yeah. I did like that they had sown the seeds of discord between him and his lieutenants earlier in the game, and if you followed up some of the other collectathons, they do hint at like there being factions within the Ket, and the Archon isn't the big bad.
Yes, so I do remember that the Archon isn't the big bad. He's just the big bad for that sector of space.
Yeah. And I liked that. I liked that they did put those dynamics in, but I just wish that they had been there when it mattered.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
And actually...
So then you get the post-credits play. Who'd you choose for the council?
I chose Morda. And I did it deliberately to make Tan mad.
I chose the Moshai.
They were mad at me for not choosing her. That would have been my first choice. But I don't like Tan, so I chose Morda. Morda's the Krogan.
Yes, Morda is the Krogan clan leader.
Yep. And you're choosing her to essentially be the new space president? Or just the big ambassador?
The big ambassador.
Oh, nothing better than a Krogan for that.
Yes. So, I chose the Moshai because I hadn't finished the book yet. I hadn't even gotten to chapter 6 at that point.
Yep. I was done with the book at this point.
Yes. So you get that, you talk to all 10 of your crew, but it was really boring. And then you get the quip about the Quarian.
Yep, and this goes all the way back to the beginning of the conversation. And if you're wondering why, after almost 45 minutes of discussing the game, we're still going on about it, it's because, like everything else, this whole game is so drawn out.
Yes.
It just doesn't, the pacing's off.
Now,
so how many arcs are there supposed to be, according to the game's vanilla canon?
5.
Just based on what they present to you. In the codex, too, and on the Wikipedia for the game. There's 4.
There are 5 arcs.
There are 5 arcs, you're correct. But the game only presents there being 4 up until that point.
You texted me after you finished the game and said, did they mention the Quarian arc?
Yep. Quarian, Drell, Hanar, basically everybody we left behind. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. You'd asked, had they mentioned it before? And I said yes. Because I hadn't finished the game when I started the book.
Yeah.
We'll get into that when we get to the book.
Yep.
So, I had heard about it. I knew about the Quarian arc with all the rest of the races.
Also, for those Elcor fans out there, honestly apologetic. I didn't mean to leave you out.
So, my immediate thought when I heard that, DLC.
That was my first thought too. There's your spoiler for your or burner for your DLC.
Yep, there's your setup for your DLC.
Which is cool.
But why set it up in the main game?
Because they knew it was coming. I don't know.
So is this going to be, for the console players, is this going to be an on-disc DLC?
That would be bad. That would be so bad.
That you need to buy an unlock code for?
That would be so dumb.
How many companies have done it, though?
Okay, so here's the thing. I want to address this in the game because it comes up in the book. They don't mention that anywhere else. They don't mention it on BioWare's site. They don't mention it in the game's own codex. I went and I looked at the arcs. I read through the whole codex at the end. Not mentioned.
I bet you it's going to be a patch just before they release the DLC.
Right. If they were so worried about finding these Pathfinders, why weren't they worried about finding the Quarian Pathfinder? Because I think that's the only one that's got a Pathfinder. I don't think it was each of the species. I think it's a Quarian arc. And by the way, no mention of the Quarians up until that random Vas Hyperion woman. And then you turn the corner and boom, there's a Quarian thing. I was like, ooh, this is awfully Quarian flavored. There's a bunch of references right there in the epilogue when the only other Quarian references I could find were the weapons. That was it.
When you talk to one of the characters, I don't remember exactly who, I think it may have been Tan, you can ask him about the Quarian arc.
Okay, I completely missed that. That's a major story point.
Yes.
Because they make it sound like the 4 council species at the end of Mass Effect 1, Asaris, Turians, Solarians, and humans are the only ones with arcs.
Yep.
Which makes sense because they're the most populous, they're the most powerful. They're the ones that bought in on this project. They never mentioned a 5th arc in the main thrust of the game, and you totally missed that. And in my case, I was like, what?
Why? And here's my point. Why would you not include a race that has lived in space?
Yeah. Why wouldn't the Quarians be number 1? And over those 600 years, you slowly acculture them through medicine so that they can live with everybody. You've got 600 years to carefully and slowly recalibrate their autoimmune systems. Here's the other thing. Where are they going to park that 5th arc?
Well, we don't know where the Turian arc is.
Well, no, it's destroyed. Were they planning on that? Was Jen Garson planning for 80% success? I mean, looking clearly at it right here, right on the cover of the book. That's a 4-sided bar in the middle of the Nexus.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to park a 5th arc.
Oh, I know.
So, game drawn out.
Absolutely. And I'm really sorry, listener, for going on so long about the game, but the game goes on for so long.
What is the principal failure of the game in your view?
Length.
Do you think it's like pacing length or just overall length?
Overall length.
How'd you have fixed it?
Less distractions.
So not an open world?
Open world, but open world to the point where the other 3 were, where it was linear, but you still had the option to go and land on a 10-kilometer square that does a planet that doesn't have a whole lot going on. You have Eos, Havaro, Eladin, Kadara, Aya,
Vold, which we forgot to mention the entire game.
Yeah, Vold. You've got all these worlds that have all these things going on, and
a lot of it's garbage collectathons.
Yes.
Major components of the story are locked behind those.
Yes. You go through, you're driving along in the Nomad, which needs a gun.
Yeah, it does.
It needs a turret.
It's such an improvement over the previous game's Mako transport, but it doesn't have a gun.
It doesn't have a gun. And you run across all these little patches of Ket and Remnant and just these different enemies, and they're meaningless.
Yeah, and they just keep respawning. It's not even like in Mass Effect 1, if you went and murdered everything on your 10 square kilometers, it's not going to respawn the next time you land.
Yeah.
I learned to just drive past conflicts.
Yep.
Really early on. It's just whatever. And it's not going to change, and if I come back in 20 hours, it's going to be the same. I'm 100% on board. I would have removed that open world element and gone right back to what worked in Mass Effect 1.
Yep.
You know? And I think it's fine to have some of those little quests like off those, because remember Noveria and Knossos, well, less so Knossos, but especially Noveria had lots of quests right off the hub, and even Viridian did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's good, but the quests need to be short.
And Pharos had lots of little quests, and they were meaningful, short, largely dialogue-based, you know, not collectathons.
Yep.
They might have been, go here and fetch this, but you're going to get a good conversation on either side. In this case, the Angara, who just met not 1, but 4 species that just popped into the galaxy when their only other extraterrestrial conflict
was the
Ket, which was incredibly hostile. 4 new species with equivalent power in a weakened form show up, and they're like, "Hey, Pathfinder," and you're like, "Shouldn't I be a celebrity?" You know, and they're like, "Oh, thank you for fetching my rubber duck."
Yeah, it's nuts.
I agree.
Before we move on to the book, I want to get your opinion on the architects. The first architect I ran into was on Vold with level 2 hazard cold,
which is cool.
Oh,
I love that they had the hazards.
Fantastic! I love that battle.
Yep.
It was your typical boss battle.
Yep. You got to do 3 things. It's going to happen in phases. There's going to spawn little enemies you got to take care of. Hit its weak points. Shoot it in the face.
Absolutely loved it.
Yep.
I hate boss battles that are repetitive.
Yep.
But I loved that.
It was the scale of it.
Yes.
It was the scale of it. It felt like a titanic megalithic enemy that could crush me if it wanted to, but it wasn't functioning properly.
Yes. Between battling the architect and battling the cold, there were a couple times I almost died.
Yep.
Because I was too cold.
Yep.
My life support started failing.
I had to sprint a couple times to find the convenient health tanks that are littered everywhere.
I absolutely loved that battle. That first run-in with the architect.
Mm.
And I did that on the Xbox when I rented it.
Mm.
Ran into it again. After I colonized Vold, I specifically went and found the architect, found the mission to fight the architect because I loved that architect fight so much.
Yep.
And then I found out they were on every planet.
Not every planet.
Just about every planet.
I think I only fought 3 of them. Although I stopped doing side missions because they were boring. I was bored. I stopped caring. I fought it on Eos, I fought it on Vold, and I want to say I fought it on Kadara, but it may have been Eladin. I never fought the big worm on Eladin. I wasn't sure what would trigger it, and I didn't care.
Yeah, the big worm on Eladin.
Is that an architect?
No, I don't know what it is. I could never trigger it. I physically went and tried.
I chased it a couple times, but it was always so far away, except one time where it was like right on top of me, and I was like, "Oh no!" and then nothing happened.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, it had to be.
I was expecting a Thresher Maw experience with that.
Yeah, which is kind of what it is. I mean, I like them. I thought they were cool, and I didn't. Each time I did it out, it was massive in scale. You're never sure where they were going to go.
Yep.
Up until the end, the last one was terrible. Yeah. I don't even know if it was connected to the Archon's
Mass Effect. I think my favorite Thresher Maw fight that I've ever done, and I love doing this mission, is Grunt.
On Tuchanka.
Yep. From Mass Effect 2. I loved that fight.
That was pretty cool.
Every time, the first thing I want to do when you get the message that Grunt is going nuts, immediately run right down there.
Yep.
Because I love that mission so much.
It's a cool mission.
And
they reference it too in Andromeda.
Yes, they do. Yeah, they do.
When I was young, we had to kill Thresher Maws or something like that. Drax says it. So, Kyle, before we switch gears totally to the book, did you like Mass Effect Andromeda?
It was all right. There was just too much to do, too many distractions.
Yeah, definitely too many distractions. So I think next time I play through it, and I will play through it again, it's a Mass Effect game.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm just going to skip all the side stuff.
I'll do some of the side stuff, because some of the side stuff's really interesting. Like the loyalty missions.
The loyalty missions are definitely good.
The loyalty missions, the architect fight.
But, the main side stuff, the Mass Effect side stuff.
Yes.
The other collectathons, I won't do it again. I don't benefit from that knowledge.
What I may do is the file that I've got that I just finished, I may go back through and collect all the memory triggers and watch those cutscenes.
You're going to want that completed file anyway for the inevitable Mass Effect Andromeda 2.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into the book. This is your turn to speak all the time.
Yay! Okay, so I'm going to first start off by reading the back of the book so that you get an idea of what it was that we chose off the shelf in that moment of destiny. So Mass Effect Andromeda Nexus Uprising's blurb is... It says, they slept for hundreds of years dreaming of a new home in the Andromeda galaxy. When finally they awoke, their dreams of peace are shattered. These colonists, Turian, Solarian, Asari, Human, and more, I guess there is a little reference there, interesting, face an uncharted galaxy and threats beyond understanding. Bwam! The Nexus is the core from which the colonists will explore their new home. Yet even before the Arks arrive, the massive space station sustains critical damage. The entire mission is placed in jeopardy, and Security Director Sloane Kelly must reassert order while racing to identify the nature of the threat that faces them. If she fails, the Andromeda Initiative could crumble. So it sounds like an interesting prequel. It sets up, in theory, the premise of the game.
Yep.
Except it's got almost nothing to do with the game.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, so let's just get that out of the way. This is a prequel to events that have very little to no bearing on the game itself, except explaining why there are some humans around for you to kill that aren't just Remnant or Ket.
Yeah.
Or Rokar, which are the Angaran bad guys, because they needed their own special name.
Yeah.
So, this book is written by two people, and it definitely has a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde texture to it.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it's pretty good, and other times it's virtually unreadable. So speaking of virtually unreadable, let's just start with the prologue. Okay, so Sloane Kelly is the main protagonist, and if you can't see him right now because you don't have astral vision, Kyle is currently holding his hands in his head like he's got a hangover.
The prologue. Odin's beard.
So Sloane Kelly, who is the security director of the entire Andromeda Initiative, has also a massive hangover because they've just partied. The book starts with her having a hangover, which is how the book feels. And she sees everybody off to sleep, Jan Garson, the founder, and I guess Alec Ryder, although he kind of wanders off on his own. And she basically escorts them to their stasis chambers.
No, the scene with Alec Ryder was before.
He takes off in the shuttles.
Yes.
Yeah, he takes off in the shuttles. They blow through all this. You don't really have any reason to care about these characters going into the cryo chambers or going off to their own arcs. All you know is there's a massive party and a kind of crappy inspirational speech that happened the night before. That Jen Garson keeps going, hey, you should really listen to my speech. It's pretty awesome. A little bit of self-promo there for her. After she sees Jen Garson off to sleep and we get some unearned drama, then Sloane decides to listen to this speech, which takes up the bulk of the prologue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever in your life read something so confusingly written?
No.
Me neither.
I took notes on a legal pad just as you did, and I have a full page of notes on this.
Okay, I have a notebook worth of notes on the book itself, but what it amounts to is Jan Garson saying, this is going to be an adventure, guys.
Yeah.
But it takes the better part of 5 pages to do this. Okay? So I have a thought about how confusing this speech is. And that is that the writers, which either Huff or Alexander, were trying to simulate the way that Commander Shepard and Ryder give inspirational speeches in the game, which is they say a couple lines, and then you see reaction shots of the crew, and then they say a couple more lines, and then you see more reaction shots of the crew. And the whole time you're choosing, do you want to go the hard line, do you want to go the soft line, do you want to be inspirational? Except this is a book. And when you interrupt a piece of dialogue every 2 sentences to give us a page of somebody having a euphoric reaction to it, it just reads ridiculous. Yeah. And you lose track of what it is you're reading and what the point of the conversation is. It's bizarre, and how it made it through copy editing is just beyond me. It's one of the worst prologues I think I've ever read.
Yeah, I agree.
I was at the end of that prologue, I was just thinking to myself, I don't know if I want to do this. There was a strong part of me that wanted to text Kyle and say, can we please just move on to Dead Space? I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But I persevered. So I had a couple thoughts in this chapter right off the bat. First of all, what happened with the editing? Do you think that was just...
I think this was just they wrote the entire book and were getting ready to publish, and they were like, oh my god, we don't have a prologue. What do we do? And this was just kind of slapped together.
It definitely feels slapped together. It doesn't even feel well copy edited.
No.
The second thing is that her reaction, Sloane Kelly's reaction to Jan Garson's speech was so melodramatic.
Oh, I've got thoughts on that.
All right, unload on me, because I'm going to stop there, because otherwise I can complain about bad writing all day, but it's to no positive effect here. What were your thoughts?
Okay. I was so bothered by this, I actually wrote the page number down.
Oh boy, okay.
On page 23, Sloane leans against the bulkhead while she's listening to this speech and feels the ship breathe.
I have it right here. I'm going to read it. She stood there, leaning against one bulkhead out of a million, not even really sure exactly where she was, and took that moment to feel the ship. Listen to it breathe in its own mechanical way. The whir of systems engaged and ready, the constant dry whisper of circulated air. Oh boy, it's mixed construction. The one would stop soon enough. There was no need to waste the power when nobody needed the air.
Okay, Sloane's a security director. Military, her entire life. Her entire adult life, she's been military.
Yep.
Now in prior military, I've dealt with security personnel. Not a single security personnel that I've run into, infantrymen, whatever you want to, whatever class of gunmen, to use the term loosely, you want to use, is not going to walk up to a piece of machinery and say, I can feel it breathe. They're not paid to listen to machinery and quote unquote feel it.
Yeah.
That is a technician. That is specifically a technician's job.
And even here, at a heady moment, her head ought to be in the game, which is making sure that nobody sabotages this equipment, because there's not going to be anybody at the wheel for 600 years, and they don't even have an AI running it.
Nope.
AI is illegal in the Milky Way.
Yep.
It's part of why Sam is allowed to exist in Andromeda.
Yep.
So it's going to be running on basically automated using low-level artificial intelligence. The game's own
VI.
Yeah, terminology for it is virtual intelligence. So she ought to be dead focused. It's absolutely unbelievable.
There's also no reason that the security director should be walking around the ship by herself pre-launch.
What if there was somebody there who shouldn't have been, and she's the only one? Everybody else has gone to sleep.
Not only that, if there's a technical problem, she's not going to be able to spot it.
Dead right. What's she going to do? Go wake up Tan? Actually, Cash, probably.
Cash.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't make any sense why she's there alone. She's probably one of the last people who should be tucked away. But really what you'd want is somebody who's staying at home to be doing these checks. Because that person will then be awake, or that team will then be awake to observe and to get
they're also
readings.
They're also being escorted all the way out of the Milky Way. Why couldn't one of those teams stay on the Nexus and troubleshoot systems while the rest of the Nexus crew is asleep, and then just before the last jump in between the galaxies, that crew leaves.
You know what? You're dead to rights. You're right. It doesn't make any sense. It's just from the ground up. This is a really poor introduction to
absolutely.
The series, to Mass Effect in general, to a science fiction novel, to even just a prequel that's trying to set this up. You know what they could have done? Just started like 2 chapters later.
Yep.
Let her wake up. You know, and that's it. You don't need a prologue in something like this. Nope. In fact, the prologue serves, if it's going to be connected, it should have been somebody who was never going to see it again, and it should have been somebody from the escort team saying, "You're great to go. Have a good old trip, guys."
Yep.
Seeing them off, so that then when they awake, you have a dramatic impact of, but that dude said everything was going to be okay, and now everything's on fire.
Yep. Okay, so do you have any more thoughts before I dive into to my biggest issue?
Nothing that we haven't already repeated.
Okay. So again, I wrote page numbers down.
Okay.
Because I read 10 pages into the prologue and had to start writing page numbers down. My first question was, why did the arcs leave before the Nexus? That was
they must have been a little slower.
Specifically implied that the arcs left before the Nexus.
Correct. By a day.
2 pages later, suddenly the Nexus is leaving first.
I missed that one.
4 pages later, Sloane or someone starts talking about the 4 arcs.
Yep.
Where's the 5th one?
Well, it doesn't exist yet. It hasn't been released as DLC.
Page 19, the arcs are suddenly leaving first again. 3 times it flip-flops. Another issue I had was, I don't know if you caught this, but when they're all standing in the Nexus crew is all standing in the line as Alex Rider leaves, the hangar doors close twice.
We've got a lot of issues with doors in this book.
Yeah.
A lot of issues with doors. I'm going to bring up another inconsistency of doors being blown off and also not being blown off in the next chapter.
So as for my opinion on the speech, it was decent.
Wow, that's generous. I'm going to be flat out here. I think the speech was one of the worst lines of dialogue in any of the 4 games and like 8 books.
My exact words in my notes here are, speech was decent, not what I would personally call inspiring, but still decent. You have to remember, I don't have a writing background. I do have a military background. I've sat through some pretty poor speeches.
I mean, I work in education. Me too.
It
This wasn't inspiring. It was insulting.
Yes. Like I said, not something I would call inspiring, but it was okay. It was decent at best.
You're generous. I really think this dialogue that they chalk up to be some sort of great Nelson Mandela masterpiece it's as bland gets, and the dissociation between the hype and the reality just serves to.
No, I get what you're saying, and I can equate this speech to. I can equate to what your opinion on this speech is to some of the speeches I've heard in the military. They're bad. They're uninspiring. They're insulting. Mostly the yearly "don't kill yourself" speeches that we get. Let's move on.
So just really bad first impression. Correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Both ends. Bad first impression. But it does match the bad impression that the game first gives you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so Chapter 1, Sloan and also Kandros, who goes on to become the new security director for reasons that are not explained in the game.
No. He's not security director. He's militia director in the game.
Well, whatever. It's the same thing. They don't have security anymore, apparently. Okay, so Sloan and Kandros, who's a Turian that she wakes up next to, wake up very suddenly in the middle of a disaster, stuck in their cryopods, with no tools to help them out. Although there is a manual release, but because Sloan Kelly, this is discussed much later in the book, because Sloan Kelly decided not to pay attention in these critical mission imperative lectures because she was too busy, I don't know, being angry or something. She missed the fact there was a manual release. Now again, if I was forming a galaxy colonizing initiative, I wouldn't pick somebody with a major personality problem. I'd pick somebody who's so by the books and straight-laced that you'd think they were a Mormon.
Yeah.
You know, but she's the worst, and this is going to keep coming back to this. She's the worst possible option for a character to be your security director unless your eventual goal is for her to become a pirate queen. Yep. Which she will, if you give her enough time.
Before we move on from that, your first impression of this chapter when she was struggling to get out of her pod.
That was okay.
Me as a technician and working in the engineering field, she's struggling to get out of her pod, swearing that there is no manual release. You mentioned that there is, and it's later in the book. It makes her character come off as your generic ignorant soldier.
Yep.
Straight up knows nothing about the tech she's using. In my personal opinion, it's lazy writing. Absolutely lazy writing.
100% agree with you.
I could not wrap my head around that. I've been in the position of the quote-unquote ignorant soldier. I learned quick enough.
I can wrap my head around that. It's fundamental disrespect for the people of the armed services and their actual intelligence and ability to adapt.
Fair enough.
That's what that is. Soldiers are stupid, otherwise they'd have a real professional job. Not because they want to sacrifice or because they've got some greater mind or they're patriotic. They're stupid because that's why they're in the military. It's fundamental disrespect. Every single security officer in this book is portrayed that way and treated that way by the senior administration.
Yeah. Except for Kandros. Kandros is
awesome. Turian.
Kandros is written very intelligently.
Yeah.
Kandros' character.
Except when he's written out of the book forever. So again, not really treated with respect.
True.
He's given it a chance to jump up the line, and he just jumps on it, goes for it,
and then disappears, and suddenly he's back in the game.
Yeah. We're gonna get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Kandros leaves. But anyway, Kandros the Turian, who is, I think he's security, and Sloan, who's the director of security, again, main character, wake up. Everything is on fire. She can't get out. She frees herself by banging the door apart, I guess?
Something like that.
And then she frees Kandros. It's a relatively dramatic scene. It's a big improvement over the garbage of the prologue.
Yeah.
And then they start to free people and they manage to escape. So it's better paced. The dialogue generally is better. And Kandros is cool. But that could be, my notes here, is that it's because he doesn't really talk.
Yeah.
So you just get the sense of this Turian doing what needs to be done and being stoic about it, which is the way Turians are characterized in the game. Nice tie. I don't really have any additional thoughts on it, other than I just think it's a better chapter than the prologue, and it should have started here.
By far. I do have one other thought. The book mentions Sloan having only a unit under her command. She's security director.
For the entire initiative.
For the entire Nexus minimum. Why does she only have a unit? Why suddenly does she only have a unit?
I don't know. It should be a department, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
A strange but better first chapter.
Yes.
This is where the book should
be. I agree. The writing in this is much improved over.
And I would wager that it's probably another author did the prologue because it's so out of tune. with the first one, and really the next 4 or 5 chapters. So in chapter 2, Sloane goes looking for an explanation about what the heck is going on in the Nexus. She also starts looking for Jean Garson. This begins the great quest of the first 100 pages or so. She sends Kandros away with the other survivors, which I think, again, is another really strange decision, but it's definitely just the first of many, where she sends away valuable personnel and makes what is objectively the wrong decision. Her first thought is that there must be intruders on the Nexus and someone has sabotaged, so of course I'm going to send my entire team away, the only other security officer that I've got, and I'm going to dispatch them to the shuttles.
The rest of them, from a military standpoint, what she did was intelligent. And I realized that...
I get that she's protecting the civilians.
Yes.
Is that the point here?
She sends Kandros to protect the civilians in the shuttle in the shuttle bay.
Okay.
While she goes off and tries to figure out what's going on.
She should have gone with him and then come back.
I agree. That would have been the wiser choice here, but there was a definitive reason behind her decision there.
Okay.
It wasn't just this is a really bad decision, I'm going to write it in.
I think it's a fundamentally poor decision, and it sets up some of the weirdness that then comes up in the book. So after sending Kandros away, she finds Addison concussed. Addison is the colonial administrator or director or whatever.
Colonial affairs director.
If you're on the internet, you'll know her as My Face is Tired Lady. And we begin to see some serious cross of personality here. Because even though Addison is concussed, she's apparently been thrown across the room. She doesn't like that Sloane Kelly has an attitude, which is actually probably the way she should be behaving, which is no nonsense, get to the root of the problem, figure out what's going on.
Yep.
Addison is too embarrassed to say what exactly happened to her, and they have no sign of Jean Garson or the other senior personnel. So this is a better chapter than the prologue still, but it's got lots of inconsistencies. And I was starting to think by this point that I can't believe that they didn't have Omni tools just built into their pods for them to grab when they woke up.
Yeah.
That was where ridiculous. Are their tools? Where is her firearm? That is ridiculous. I can't imagine a security director going in with no weapons. I mean, at least an Omni tool is a blade.
Yeah, that was nuts.
This is really stupid.
Yeah, I believe in this chapter is when they start multiple times throughout the book, but I believe this is where it starts. The author mentions Sloane reaching for her hip for a gun.
Yeah. Why wouldn't she have brought the gun into her pod? Why would that not be there?
Why wouldn't it be in the cryo room?
Yeah.
That cryo room, from my understanding, was security personnel.
I'm just saying, when the Master Chief wakes up at the end of Halo 3, there's guns in the same room where he wakes up.
Yeah.
So, just keep that in mind.
Yep.
Or, sorry, Halo 4. So, moving on to a couple more thoughts here. The reason that Addison, who is a major character in the games in terms of higher up powers, the reason that she doesn't know where Jean Garson is because she was poo-frayed. She had to go to the bathroom and didn't want to make a stinky mess near her bosses.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because they argue about this for 2 chapters.
I cannot believe the way that this was addressed. First of all, it's real stupid. Second of all, why did they stick on this? Did they think it was funny?
In my notes, my exact quote, and I do apologize for the minor profanity here, but it gets my point across. What the hell was with the bathroom argument?
It's so stupid.
It was garbage.
It was crappy.
Puns. So, my thoughts on chapter 2. From my understanding of the book, Ops and Colonial Affairs are in different places?
Yeah, apparently they're just scattered. And it kind of makes sense from a redundancy standpoint. All of the Colonials are scattered in their stasis pods throughout the Nexus's main chamber.
No. Colonial Affairs and Ops.
Not in the game.
No,
in the game they're 50 feet away.
Right next to each other.
Yeah.
Were these authors not privy to the bare minimum, the maps of the Nexus?
I bet they weren't. I really bet they weren't. I bet they were probably given the basic facts, maybe the notes from the codex, and that was it. I know that happens. So, in their defense, I bet that's what the real issue was here.
Most likely. Okay, so another issue I had with chapter 2 was there's a scene in chapter 2 where Sloane is talking about, she doesn't see familiar stars, so she knows she's not in the Milky Way galaxy. How do you tell stars apart in space?
You use a spectrometer. That's a scientific answer. You look at the chemical occlusion or the chemical absorption. You can't with your bare eyes.
The way her character is written is she is an ignorant soldier. She would not know.
I agree. There's so many dumb things. And I'm going to bring up one last dumb thing here. Do you remember when she meets the janitor? She meets a janitor on the way. The guy is in obviously bad repair. But he points in the direction of where Colonial is supposed to be in stasis. He says it's like up the hall to the left. And when she says that there's safety that way, or you can come with me, he's like, I'm going to take off and go to safety.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now he says the doors were blown wide off. When Sloane gets there, she has to fight to open the door.
I didn't catch that.
I don't know about you, but I've never fought to open an open door. I fought to get through an open door because I am a broad-chested, strapping young lad.
Fair point.
But I have never fought to open an open door.
No, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, all right, so we're 1 for 1 right now in terms of catching stupid stuff. We have some issues with doors.
Yeah.
We got some issues with doors. So Sloane finds Addison, and they become kind of like point counterpoint, the R2-D2 of the story. And that really bothers me. We find out that Addison is deeply poo-afraid, which sets up the rest of her anxiety-plagued character for the rest of the book.
Oh, God.
In Chapter 3, Sloane and Addison finally get to Ops, which again in the game is only like 2 ramps and a hop, skip, and a jump apart from one another. And they discover a big hole in the wall. And I actually thought this was kind of cool because the Nexus had automatically thrown up a force field to keep in the air and other personnel.
Yes.
Except for all the personnel it vented into space.
Yeah.
So, didn't work fast enough, but it was still, it was all right. I thought that was kind of cool. They just worked in that zone with the force field up all the time.
Yeah, And I believe in the game, when you look at it, you can see the big, vast open thing.
Yeah, but it's windows at that point. There's window frames. It's nice big rectangles.
Is there?
Yeah. I went back and looked.
I didn't pay attention.
Maybe it's a different room. I don't know. I don't think they paid attention when they wrote it.
I don't think they paid attention.
But yeah,
either.
so at Colonial Ops,
Colonial Ops.
Find out that all the whatever. It is Colonial Ops because it's right on top of each other. It's like a shopping mall.
Yeah.
Right, one kiosk apart. So all the senior personnel are dead except for Garson, who apparently wasn't there. They're able to figure this out. But it's a real shame because these are the only people in Mass Effect's universe with no Omnitools. They could have figured this out way sooner if they just had the Omnitools.
Yeah.
They could have just checked all the vital signs that they're able to conveniently check whenever they need to in the rest of the game and the rest of the book. They seem to expect us to care about Addison at this point. Like, they really seem to think that we're going to care about her as a character. But I got to tell you, I was just annoyed with her. Yeah. I knew she was a tired-faced woman, and that immediately set me up to not like her. But they give us no reason at all except for her specific skill set. That is, she's supposed to be the colonial director. And they do the same thing for Sloane. But again, at every turn, they've either insulted people of service or they've written her into a two-dimensional fool.
Yep.
So at this point, I don't understand why Sloane is so concerned with her personal safety. She's not senior management. She's not in line to inherit the throne, as it were. She is concussed. I don't know why you'd wander around with a concussed person. She ought to be sitting down with somebody to make sure she stays awake.
Yeah.
And for reference, if you are concussed or someone you know is concussed, you need to seek immediate medical attention because that can kill you.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why Sloane would be wandering around a potentially infiltrated ship with this woman who could die at any moment.
I did no idea.
Any particular thoughts on 3 other than just what is going on and why are there so many toilet jokes?
My biggest thing was the dialogue was clunky.
Yeah, dialogue's definitely clunky.
Absolutely clunky. It is slight improvement towards the end. The writing, the dialogue improves towards the end. The writing starts to improve, but the author in this chapter seems like he's just trying to use big words.
Yeah, there's a lot of mumbo jumbo.
Just big words thrown in there for no reason.
And again, I think this is the Dr. Hyde, Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll situation.
Yeah. Here's where the pace starts to slightly improve. We should touch on this as well. Chapter 1 and 2 read slow.
I thought 1 was like, okay, all right, this is better. This is a big improvement. 2 was like, oh. And then 3, I honestly, I felt 3, I was like, oh no.
I felt the pace started to slightly pick up towards the end of chapter 3.
All right.
Very, very slightly.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So you moving on to 4 then?
Yep.
All right. So in 4, Sloan and Addison find Kesh, which is the Krogan
superintendent. Kesh is the superintendent of Nexus.
So she's like the chief engineer. Right?
Essentially, yeah.
Or chief custodian.
She's the Nexus's Geordi.
All right. Yeah. Actually, that's a pretty good comparison. She is, because she's also a minority. I'm just saying. I know in the Federation, minorities aren't a thing that really exists, but in this case, that's the way it's played. She's an outsider to the rest of the cast, which is very vanilla.
Yes, very much so.
So they find Kesh, Krogan engineer, or chief engineer, I suppose, who tells them that the Nexus is dying. And since Garson is missing in action, they go down to the chain of command, which is this ridiculous scene where they figure out that Addison, in fact, really isn't that important. It takes them 8 steps to find somebody who's alive.
Yep.
And they need this person in order to regain access of the Nexus's network.
Yes, because the Nexus has gone into the emergency protocol, and for some reason, the director of the initiative is the only one who can clear this.
Not the director of security.
No.
Which was my first thought. Or the superintendent of the Nexus project. 2 people in the room who, by dead rights, should have access to this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you don't trust him that much, you shouldn't have hired that person.
Yep.
So, for those of you who will eventually work in H&R, hire trustworthy people. Don't hire people who appear to be good enough. You want to trust them with key responsibilities. In this case, this is a life or death scenario. And the fact that your superstar is missing means that you can't run your project, and a bunch of people are going to really, probably 100,000 people are going to die because the wrong person doesn't have the Wi-Fi code.
Yeah. Yeah, that's essentially what this is. That was ridiculous to me.
It's unbelievable. So they discover that neither Sloan nor Addison or Kesh, the 3 people who should have access to this, are going to be able to do it. Instead, it is a lowly Solarian. They keep calling him a bean counter. He's essentially an accountant for the initiative.
Yep. Which
really means he's a resource allocator. It's a little more grandiose than it sounds. But at the same time, they're 8 steps away. And this gave me a slight Battlestar Galactica vibe to the show from the early 2000s where the new president of the Galactic Colonial Network is like the Secretary of Education.
I've never seen Battlestar Galactica. Never been a big fan.
First 2 seasons are good. 3rd season's its own thing. So anyway, it becomes a Solarian. So it's none of the people who have access to it, none of the people who should have top-level managerial responsibilities, and also a top-level view of how the structure is organized and what the protocols should be. Although, to be fair, as we learned, Sloan probably didn't pay any attention to any of that.
Yeah, pretty much.
She was busy, I don't know, scratching her boots or something. Anything other than being responsibility.
She's probably shining her boots.
No, she's too rough for that. She's got to scratch them up so they look weathered so she can look tough.
Fair enough.
Instead, it's the Solarian who is middle management. So they have to go to wake him up. This is so stupid. I know it's supposed to be a criticism of the way that bureaucracies are run on the author's behalf, but it's so stupid from a narrative point of view.
Oh.
They could have done the exact same thing and criticized the bureaucracy by giving access to all 3 of them.
Yeah.
It's so dumb. And all it does is just justify why this idiot Solarian is in charge in the game. And then, as you learn by listening to the dialogue and the continued bickering about whether or not Addison should be poo-frayed, you learn that Kesh is the only adult in the room. And stays the only adult in the room for the majority of the book and game.
Yeah. For
what it's worth. She really is the only mature adult in most of the rooms in which you conversate with these people.
Yep.
And also, I like that Kesh breaks computers to fix them.
Yes. Yeah.
She just punches it.
Yep.
Thoughts?
Again, dialogue. The dialogue continues to improve.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like this is either Huff or Alexander. This is just their first time writing a book, and it's just evolving.
They're both established authors, but it feels amateur.
It feels amateur.
Yeah.
But the dialogue does continue to improve, not much. My biggest issue with this chapter was the weird page break right in the middle.
Mm.
Where they say, who the hell is Jurin Tan? And then they go wake up Tan.
Should have had a chapter break.
Yeah, I agree.
Short chapters are okay, folks.
I had to go back and read it.
Yep.
Because, like, I read all the way through chapter 4, and at the end of chapter 4, I was confused.
Yep.
I had to go back and go, oh, there's the page break.
Yep.
Because the way it was written was Tan was standing right there when they found his name.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's waking up.
Yep.
And it was like...
They just jump right to it. It's apparently really easy to wake this guy up.
Yeah. But they make it, later in the book, they make a big deal about waking people up.
Yes, they do. And how difficult it is to put him back down. It's a plot point later on.
Yeah.
So they go and they wake up Tan. Now they've got somebody who's supposed to be the director. And Kesh doesn't let this go, that he is number 8 in line. He's not really in charge. He's temporarily the chief administrator.
He's acting director.
Yeah, he's the ICEO, not the CEO.
Yeah.
So then in chapter 5, Sloane and Kelly go to revive a Turian. And the Turian is going to be able to assess and fix the rapidly failing life support systems because, as we know, the Nexus is dying. That's the first thing that Kesh says to him when she meets him. Life support is rapidly failing. This is the guy that can tune it. They also get supplies and do some parkour.
Yeah.
They jump over some stuff.
Yep.
Just to pad the book. Doesn't gain anything. I got real sick of listening to them describe walking through the Nexus.
Yeah.
Because my experience with the Nexus is it's like 8 rooms.
Yeah.
You know, and some balconies, a couple ramps.
Is that your synopsis, chapter 5?
That's it.
Can I dive into my thoughts? I have half a page of thoughts here.
I can't believe that because I thought, this chapter was starting to be a turning point, but at the same time, not a lot happens.
I have half a page of thoughts here.
Go for it.
Okay, dialogue and pacing. I read this chapter in 2 parts because I was starting to read on my half-hour lunch break at work.
Mm.
Up to page 80, when the first part of my thoughts have been written, was that the dialogue and pacing improved.
Yes.
The political aspect of succession was well explained for those not versed in the Mass Effect universe. Like the council and the Krogan and all that. It was very well explained for those just jumping into Andromeda sans Mass Effect 1 through 3.
Yeah.
However, the omniscient view between Kesh and Sloane made the writing super clunky.
Yeah.
It was really confusing.
The flipping back and forth.
Yes. It got the point across, but it was still confusing.
Yeah. I agree. Oh, yeah. Last little note here. Kyle, I want you to look me in the eye, and I want you to try to describe the back of your hand to me. Without looking at your hand, how many freckles are there on the back of your hand?
1.
1 freckle.
1 freckle.
How many scars are in the back of your hand?
Which hand?
Either hand.
I have 1 on my left, and my nails are a little long at this point right now, though.
All right. Do you agree that this metaphor about knowing the back of your hand is real stupid?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
However, I understand the joke that he was trying to go for because I've seen it before. I've made the joke myself. You go into an area with, woods, whatever, going out with someone who's never been there before, and you say, oh, I know this like the back of my hand. You look at the back of your hand and go, oh, wait, that's new. It's a horrible joke.
It's a bad joke.
It's a bad joke.
And it was played straight here, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, there was no joke here. There was no joke here.
In chapter 6, Sloane and Kesh managed to fix things while Tan and Addison, I don't know, I guess they're hiding in ops. They're not being productive or effective. There's not enough people awake at this point who are doing things that are productive for them to just be like twiddling their thumbs up there.
Nope.
That's it. That's all that happens in chapter 6. It's better paced. The dialogue is better in terms of like discussing what's going on. Solid dialogue, even from Addison, who's throughout the book so far been wooden with a tired face. And I felt like this is a turning point.
Oh, yeah.
Not a lot happens in terms of plot events.
Oh, yeah. My thoughts verbatim were same as chapter 5. Writing is improving and the pace is picking up. Better use of the omniscient writing this time.
Yeah, definitely better use. Flipping back and forth is more effective.
Oh, yeah.
And I did think, and this is important to note, that the characters who are alien are well distinguished by this point. They're writing in a way that's believable from the established Turian behavior and Krogan behavior. I felt like whichever author was in charge of this piece did a good job of emulating that viewpoint. This is also the 100-point page in the book. So what I'm going to be doing is reflecting every 100 pages. So at 100 pages in this novel, there's a lot of ups and downs in terms of quality. There's a lot of spotty dialogue. There's a little bit of showy action. There's very little actual character development of any value. And it's beginning to sow seeds of political thriller style storytelling that seems like it could make for a good story if they could just improve on the characterization and dialogue. So beginning to see the seeds of a good book, but that's really from like after page 80.
Yeah.
Chapter 5 and 6, it starts to turn.
Yep.
Which brings us to chapter 7. And I started chapter 7 only after I had met Sloane Kelly in the game. There's an important note here. So now I know that she's a traitor. But I didn't know why quite yet, because I hadn't read far enough in the book and I hadn't played far enough in the game. But I knew at this point her eventual fate is to become a pirate queen, which we've already discussed at length here in the podcast.
Yes. I actually have a note here. Reading chapter 7, knowing the game made the tension between Tan and Sloane meaningless.
Yeah, it did. Completely meaningless, because you know she's going to turn on him.
Yep.
So here's what happens in this chapter. The chapter begins with a discussion over how to solve a food shortage. The characters reverse their positions several times.
Yeah.
Flip-flop back and forth
This
over whether or not we should. It does happen
lot.
constantly. There's a lack of consistency. And they lack the resources to support specialists or to... they lack support specialists or infrastructure in order to support such a large population, but at the same time, they need those people awake in order to fix the infrastructure that they need to fix in order to support people. So it's kind of a catch-22.
Yep.
Then we learn that Tan can plan smartly, and also that Jean Garson is dead. We finally have a solution.
Yes.
Jean Garson is
Good
dead.
Lord.
So finally, we can move on. Do you know why she actually died? According to the game.
Not a clue.
Okay, Jean Garson was murdered.
That's right. That's
They
right.
discussed that. She was killed in her apartment.
Yes, because you go in, you scan with your multi-tool, you find that secret room, and...
It's the first time they mentioned a benefactor.
Yeah.
Benefactor we talked about before is the person who bankrolled probably the Elusive Man or the Sony acting as a shadow broker, bankrolled the entire Andromeda initiative, blah, blah, blah. Jean Garson was murdered. In the book, they play it up as it was an accident as a result of crashing into the Scourge. We can move on.
Yep.
It has no effect on the story at all, the fact that she was murdered, because they just choose to cover it up.
Yep.
And even in the game, they're like, don't investigate that. They just want to cover it up.
Yep.
So,
that's when you're investigating Spender.
We're going to come back to him.
Oh,
I think
God,
he's going to wake up soon. I had a really hard time with Sloane's temperament. Starting from here all the way to the rest of the book, I'd already been struggling with it. I was absolutely sick of her petulance at this point.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. If she'd been one of my students, I'd have called home.
She'd been one of my airmen, she'd have gotten a lot of paperwork.
For no narrative reason, she seems to be distinctly anti-authoritarian. Again, not what you want in your security director. Yeah. You want somebody who is an authoritarian, or at least honest.
Yeah.
In your security director. She's absolutely terrible for this position. And Tan warmed up on me a little bit in this chapter. His navigation of resources and the way that he petered his way through things and kind of skeezed his way into getting what he wanted made me like him a little bit as a character, not as a person.
All right, fair enough. This chapter, Tan's personality really begins to mirror that of what his personality is in the game. And for as much blustering as Addison does in this chapter, she's really timid.
Yeah.
Like, super timid.
She doesn't do anything. She's meaningless in the story. All she does is just refuse to make decisions, which allows Spender to become the spider he is.
Yep. And this is the first time we see Tan's racism. He is very pro-Solarian and anti every other race.
In a bad way.
Yes, very much so, especially the Krogan.
And that carries through in the game, too, because the first person he brings up to become your ambassador at the end of the game, once everything is kind of settled out, is the Solarian. And he gives you guff if you say you want anybody else. In Chapter 8, they wake people up. Sloane continues to be a bully. It's kind of hard to follow because there's another Mass Effect style speech.
Yeah.
I struggle with it. I don't really have a whole lot of notes because not a whole lot happens again. They just go through and they wake people up.
You don't have a whole lot of notes. I've got half a page.
Go for it then.
Sloane got humbled in this chapter a little bit.
It didn't have any effect.
No, it didn't. It had an effect for about 2 pages.
Yeah.
She talks with Calix, who is the life support manager, supervisor, whatever you want to call him.
Person they woke up to solve the problem. They solved in like 2 minutes.
Yep. About the emergency release built in pods.
Yep.
She swears at him and says, "Why didn't you put an emergency release in?" And he says, "We did. You just didn't pay attention."
Yep. We learned that Sloane is an idiot.
He's
an idiot. All the way up until my sniper put a bullet in her head. I killed her in the game.
Oh, okay.
I guess I allowed her to die to pull the trigger.
Tan furthers his racism, and Addison still just push over.
Again, all the worst people possible for the job.
Yep. Tan gets humbled as well, in a very public manner, with the quote. Again, I'm sorry for the profanity, but this is a quote from the book. "Who the hell are you?" That was a very, very humbling statement for Tan, which again only affects him for about 2 pages.
Yep, that's it.
Moving on.
In Chapter 9, Tan tries to play matchmaker for Sloane and Addison as he searches for a way to break a poor advisory situation.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, oh man, trying to make them be friends. They're not going to be friends because they're fundamentally opposite people in a very hostile way. But he tries to smooth things out, and he's really, really bad at it. And it's cringy writing. And he tries to break up another political situation by trying to take advantage of Kesh. So I keep thinking by this point, and we're a good 150 pages into the book at this point, that Sloane is the real problem.
Yeah.
In every chapter, including the prologue. Sloane is the real problem because she's a bully, because she refuses to just compromise, because she refuses to respect the expertise of her peers. Even people like Tan, who don't really belong in the job, refuses to respect them. Doesn't understand the situation, draws the wrong conclusions. There's a time and a place for a character who is willfully ignorant. Your main protagonist is not one.
No.
You can take somebody who's going to make all the bad decisions, and you can make them into a tragic character who's really compelling. But when it's your focal character, and you as the reader are screaming, "No, not again, stop, 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 back up," you're just creating dissonance with the reader who's not being dragged along in their shoes. They're just wondering, why am I still here? And in Chapter 9, I was wondering, why am I still here?
Yep.
The unpredictability, the pointless obstinance to everything that Tan and Addison and even Kesh tell her to do, and the general crappiness just triple the workload of the rest of the administration.
Yeah.
If she would just pick a plan and go with it, even if it wasn't Tan's, even if she just went with whatever Kesh said, she's a chief engineer, she should be in charge, I'm going to go with whatever she says.
Yep.
So many problems could have been solved. Even Calix, if she just picked Calix's side before the end of the book.
Is that all you got on chapter 9?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Again, Tan's racism, very prevalent.
Yeah.
He really shows his unwillingness to learn other cultures.
Yeah.
Through chapter 9 really, really highlights that.
Yeah, it does. It's unbelievable. That he would be allowed to take over when he's such an out-and-out racist.
Yep. This chapter shows how big his ego is, thinking he is the only one able to lead these people through this disaster.
Yeah.
He has a little inner monologue about it, and it was why?
Because he's a Solarian, he thinks a little faster, I guess. He definitely has less experience than Kesh.
Oh yeah. And then the talk about cohesion between himself, Sloane, and Addison comes off as coercion and malice to cement his position as director.
Yeah, it really does.
That's all it was. It wasn't,
the matchmaking is skeezy and it's really obvious.
Oh, yes. Which this dialogue sequence with Tan and Sloane about her predilections handled horribly in this chapter. But later in the book, that type of relationship is handled very tactfully. Very tactfully.
Is Addison a lesbian?
No, I'm talking about the botanist. I can't remember his name at this right now. The botanist and Reg, the gay couple.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep. You're right.
Very, very well handled there, but here it's just
clunky.
There.
Yeah.
Where it honestly felt like it was just placating to the LGBT community.
And it's awesome that they're including, but it's the same issue that the game runs into with the trans character that they just shoehorned in.
Yeah.
It feels shoehorned in and disrespectful.
Which, that goes back to another BioWare game, Inquisition. Inquisition is a trans character. The way they dealt with that was this trans character's commander said, I don't give a oops. But that's how that was dealt with, and then it was never brought up as an issue. Like, BioWare was like, oh, well, we included it in Inquisition, now we gotta include it in BioWare. Or in Mass Effect. I don't even know which character that was. Because they edited it out with the patch.
Well, I think they made it so you gotta go back and talk to that person a couple times. Is my understanding. It's still there. Yeah.
Wasn't it Addison?
No, I don't think it was. If it was Addison, I never got. But I didn't want to talk to her. She just aggravated me.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think that they should be stretching to try to tell characters from different perspectives. We don't always need a white male or female protagonist. They do a great job with aliens. They do a pretty good job with people who aren't straight. I mean, Reyes Vidal is awesome. He was my lover of choice as a straight man sitting here. I was like, Reyes is as suave as they come. I couldn't help but be charmed by him. You know,
my love interest in the game was PB.
I tried. To be fair, I tried to Commander Riker the Galaxy. It just didn't work.
I thoroughly enjoyed the social awkwardness of PB. You know, I'm fairly socially awkward myself, so I connected with PB a lot more than any other character. All right, so chapter 10.
Tan tries and fails to backroom politic.
Okay, do you have any more thoughts on this one?
No, he just tries to be sneaky. I thought the writing was clever, but like, he's a Solarian, so it's always half-baked and, you know, dialed up to 11. I like the way that they characterize the Solarians, because it was very much in universe or in character for the way that they always try to like wheedle in the background, and that's how the genophage happens and a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He's already such a crappy character that for him to be doing this back dealing, it's just like one more turd on the pile.
Yeah. I mean, my thoughts on it were, you know, his ego and racism, and now it seems he has the goal of trying to make himself dictator rather than director.
Yeah, that definitely is like an ongoing thing. His complete unwillingness to discuss the illegitimacy of his position and to effectively deal with the underlings that really are much more suited to that position.
Yep. Now this is the point in the book that my hatred for Tan really came out.
Okay, why?
Like my notes in my notes I wrote down. I thought I hated Tan via the game. The book makes the hate grow.
Yeah, fair enough. It definitely is a feedback loop. Are you a Krogan sympathizer?
I like the Krogan.
Yeah, me too. Like, the Solari are really tough to stomach unless they're apologizing for what they've done.
Yeah, and they don't do that very often.
No.
I think the only one that does is Morden in the third game.
His underling, Daniel, does too in the second game. You go and you find him. No, it's not Daniel. It's another Solarian that you go to find for his loyalty mission in the second game.
Yeah.
And he's the one that starts Morden on that backpedaling track.
Yeah, because he's his underling, or his second, or whatever, whoever helped him do the research, is trying to reverse it and doing very, very unethical experiments.
Yeah, to do it.
Yep.
On the flip side, though, the delight that Tan takes in bringing up the genophage and constantly insulting the people that his people have done so much damage to is, like, difficult to stomach.
Yeah, it is.
And you'd think that somebody, like maybe the security director, seeing that there's a massive crisis coming down the pipe at any second now because this dude is out of control, might do something about it rather than just standing complaining in the corner.
She'd have to be competent first.
She'd have to pick up her phone.
They don't have phones.
Whatever, the Omni tool. It's a turn of phrase, right? Half the book is explaining about how she can't ever be reached on her Omni tool. She's a security director, and she's incognito most of the time. Again, worst possible people for each job.
Yep. Like I said, she would have to be competent first.
Yeah. This is, by the way, this is an idiot plot. Do you know what that means?
Not particularly.
Okay, it's a storytelling moniker that's used to describe a plot in which the characters could solve almost all of the problems in like 5 minutes if they weren't idiots.
Gotcha.
So
yeah.
You remove Tan from power because he's not capable of allocating resources, and has shown this to be objectively true time and time again. You make Addison step down because she's depressed and she's probably still concussed and mentally ill from this. She needs to recover. You let the engineering crew, which is going to be able to take care of your house, water, utilities, and food, step in number one, and you have a two-way power: security, engineering. Nothing else matters until you're safe and you're sheltered.
Yep.
You wake up whoever you feel is necessary to that proposition, and if you have to gunpoint them back into their cryo caskets when they're all done until we can wake everybody up, that's what you do. The whole humanitarian thing is nonsense. This is utilitarian. You're going to die, and all of your what did we come to the number, like 500,000 people?
I don't know.
I think it must have been, right?
Let's
just like lowball. All 100,000 people on the Nexus are going to die a cold, still death if you can't get over yourself and just make decisions.
Yeah.
But everybody in the plot, with the sole exception of Kesh, is an idiot.
Yeah. Kesh is the only character that has got herself together and knows what needs to get done.
But she doesn't have the Krogan willingness to just crush Tan's skull and say, this is the way it's going to be, or I'm going to wake Morta up, and then it's going to be this way anyway. Yeah. And even the other people that they try to raise up as sensible, they try to raise Sloane up as a sensible mediator. And what's the name of the Turian? Calyx?
The life support?
Yeah, Calyx, right?
Yeah, Calyx.
Even he is completely oblivious to the decisions that he's making and the impact that it's having on his cultic followers. It's an idiot plot, unfortunately.
Yeah. This is the chapter that Tan brings Calyx into his office and talks to and tries to get the maintenance code, right?
Backdealing politics, yeah. Which comes up later on because Calyx knows that Tan wants to backdoor.
Okay.
So yeah, this is kind of the turning point where you realize the plot is an idiot plot. Which is a shame because I really think Mass Effect could do wonders with some serious science fiction.
Oh yeah.
But again, we just boiled down to everybody. We got to get it to this point. This point is dumb, so we're going to make the characters dumb to get it to that point.
Yep.
And this is why I honestly, at this point, I think we can say this prequel is a bad idea. They should have said it elsewhere or afterward. The Uprising itself didn't need to be explained. I think it would have been way more interesting to hear about settling Kadara.
After the Uprising.
Yep. Sloane Kelly, the rise of the Pirate Queen, you can say she was the security director and you can allude to it, but this is one of those things that when you shine a light on it, you realize it's dumb. It's very transparent. And when you see Tan in all of his stupid glory in this chapter, which is well written, because again, the aliens are always better characters than the humans in Mass Effect.
Yeah.
I
still don't understand that.
So, that you got on chapter 10?
That's all I got on chapter 10.
Sweet. So, in chapter 11, a Solarian manages to wake up his posse, and then they try to steal a shuttle. And we have our first, semi-terrorist moment here. And we see Sloane Kelly and her team effectively kill a bunch of civilians that are terrified.
That was chapter 12.
Oh, that's chapter 12? Okay, so we're getting there anyway.
Yeah. Chapter 11 was the setup to it.
This is the setup. So it's the first bit of the Nexus Uprising from the title that we've seen. And other than Sloane, the bureaucracy seems to be the greatest threat to the Nexus. I still think Sloane as a security director being fundamentally incompetent and borderline having serious personality illnesses.
Yeah.
The bureaucracy itself and the way that it's set up is the greatest threat to the Nexus.
Yep.
Not even the giant space phenomenon outside that's slowly shredding it.
Yeah.
It's the idiots inside.
Yeah. Yeah, I thoroughly agree with that.
And then I thought, honestly, the way that it was set up it's decent drama for this sort of story. It's a nice little turn, especially after this semi-comedy of Tan being an awkward, failed matchmaker and an awkward politician to hard brow into drama like that.
Yeah.
It was a good turn. It's an uptick on the chapter. But still.
Yep. Yeah. My thoughts on that were quite literally a meh chapter building to something larger.
Question for you.
Answer for you.
What happens if you drop the oxygen level in a room?
You suffocate?
You have to drop it to the point where you suffocate. But to the brink of asphyxiation, you pass out, right?
Yeah.
Why didn't they do that? Why wasn't that the step one? Moving on. Chapter 12, we get a very good close quarters combat scene. I actually really like the way it was written.
Yeah.
Between Sloane and her crew as they try to stop the hostage crisis because the Solarian and his posse are holding some more civilians hostage at the
one of the shuttles, demanding a shuttle.
Yeah. I thought it was well written. I thought it was very Mass Effect combat-y in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, I thoroughly agree. Writing of the firefight and the tactics that Sloane uses with her team are very well done. I mean, after the firefight, the writing improves so much.
Yeah, and I think this is an instance of one of the authors took over.
Yeah, and it makes it a lot easier to read. Borderline enjoyable.
What did you think about the use of biotics as like translation of game mechanics to storytelling?
I think they did it really well. It reminded me a lot of the cutscene biotics.
Yeah. Yes, it did. A little more powerful than what you really get in game.
Yeah, you and I have had this conversation, like talking about Jack from Mass Effect 2 or Liara or any of the really powerful biotics. You see them doing these incredible feats with their biotics in the cutscenes. Jack rips up an entire space station with her biotics.
Yep.
But when you actually use her and through gameplay, it's just
push, pull, reeve,
that's
shockwave.
That's about it.
Yeah, I like that they can do it in the mechanics too, because like magic comes across better generally in fiction because it's less limited.
Yeah,
and this is a case where the book positively used the mechanics from the game, not stupidly used it the way that they did with all the broken technology. So I like this a lot. I didn't like though that there was a little bit of talk about how to enforce order effectively, and then instead of enforcing order effectively or doing the smart thing, which was just to drop the oxygen level, or even to just flood it with carbon monoxide, or do anything other than walking in and having a bloodbath. But again, they defer to Tan, and then they blow everybody away.
Yep.
So I don't know how that doesn't destabilize your regime, but for what we got out of it, okay. I'm not going to cry over some NPCs that just got murdered, but I think in terms of storytelling, it waters it down. So we're at the 200-page mark now.
Yeah.
So strangely, my opinions at this point are that my appraisals of the characters have flipped. Sloane Kelly is completely insufferable, but despite himself, or maybe in spite of himself, I kind of like Tan because of the goofy dialogue. Insofar as he's at least driving the plot forward rather than refusing to do anything at all.
All right, fair enough.
So I don't like him, but I like him more than I like Sloane at the moment because she's absolutely incorrigible. She's just so miserable and sour for the sake of being a BAMF. And she's not a BAMF. She's an idiot.
Yeah. Yep.
I even kind of liked Addison. Addison seemed to be improving a little bit.
A little bit. Not much, but a little.
Low bars here, folks. Low bars.
Are there even any bars?
Meanwhile, Kesh is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm kind of enjoying the political drama as far as the story's written. Like, the plotting is okay. But I think the biggest thing here, and what they failed to capitalize again and again because they shy away from specifics, is the need to resource manage, which would have been a really cool game mechanic. It would have been interesting to have to fight through this part as game one in Andromeda.
Yeah.
The scarcity thing is an actual positive narrative force, but it's just largely ignored in favor of the goofy backroom dealing. What if Ryder had showed up in the middle of this, and then you've got to pick a side? Do you go with the existing order, or do you go with the rebels that are trying to do it the right way?
So you want to force a moral choice.
I want to provide a moral choice, which the game never does. I never felt like any of those choices that you had to make had any real implications, with the sole exception of the Solarian arc and the Krogan. Everything else, it was pick A or B, character A or character B. I don't care about either. I'm going to pick the one that makes sense for the story, not the morals, not the difficult choice. It was just that one choice.
Yeah, the Solarians or the Krogan. I had the same thought. The save the Solarian Pathfinder or save the Krogan. It was. While I was.
It wasn't even the Solarian Pathfinder. It was the Solarian Pathfinder and the civilians that were on the ship that she was rescuing.
No, it was only the Pathfinder.
Are you sure?
Almost positive.
I may have misread that situation then. Still would have chosen the Krogan. Go Krogan!
But at the same time, this choice in the game made it felt like, you know, by the time I found the Solarian arc, I already had 2 of the 3 arcs.
Me too.
You know, I had the Asari and I had the Turian. Both Pathfinders had been replaced.
Yes.
I as Ryder had replaced the original human Pathfinder.
Yep.
We're replaceable.
Yes.
That was the way I read that situation, was the Pathfinders are replaceable.
Mm-hmm.
The Krogan aren't.
No.
That's why I went and saved Krogan.
Fair enough. No, I that's the only moral choice in the game, whereas if you look at Mass Effect 1, you've got to decide how you're going to handle this long-dead species of hivebinds that the galaxy's had issues with, but that you realize were being forced to do something against their will. They were being corrupted by probably Reaper influence to begin with, if you read deep enough into the Codex. You've got to choose whether or not you're going to deal with the Thorian, another hive mind, which is, I don't know, a little lazy on their behalf, but you got to decide, are you going to blow the Thorian thing away, or are you going to save the colonists, or what are you going to do? You've got to decide how you're going to deal with Matriarch Benezia and how you're going to talk to her and attempt to negotiate with her. You got to decide, are you going to let Caden or Ashley die, which isn't a moral choice. It's always Caden. Caden always dies in nuclear fire.
Always.
Period. Ashley is difficult as a character, but Caden's terrible. So it's the lesser evil, simply.
Jenkins is a better character.
Jenkins is a better character than Caden because he has less headaches and doesn't whine as much. But then you've got to decide, how are you going to deal with Saren? Are you going to try and talk Saren down? Are you going to try to hardline with them? And those are all moral choices that come into character for you that you have to make as a character. And then you got to decide, you're going to save the Council, or are you going to attack the Citadel even faster? You know, are you going to sacrifice your own military strategy, attack and advantage to save these people that haven't worked with you all game? Are you going to do the right thing or the smart thing?
Yeah.
You know, and then so the first game is packed full of moral choices, and it would take us forever to go through game 2 and 3 because there's a lot. Even in the crappier writing in 3, there's lots of moral choices.
Yep.
Andromeda doesn't have that, and I almost think it would be better if Ryder had showed up during, you know, maybe even during the pitch or the anticlimax of the book when Tan is at his worst, and you've got Morta, you know, as a third option here, and you've got Calyx who's just behaving erratically.
Yeah.
And you've got to sort that out and decide, how are we going to advance forward from this?
Yep. Chapter 13.
Yeah, we see a run-in between Calyx's life support team and William Spender, who is my favorite person to hate.
Oh, God. Spender.
He's the senior administrative assistant, and there's a little bit of actually funny blue-collar humor here.
Yeah.
They're like, you know, tell the boss that Spender wants to talk to him, and they go all the way around the line, and it comes back to Calyx eventually. He's like, I'm the boss, what's up? I thought that was funny. I laughed aloud.
Yeah, I did too.
Hey, Nacho!
Hey, Nacho! It's Natu.
Yep. And he sticks with that through the whole book, too. Yep. There are some good lines. But
from support characters.
Yeah, again, from support characters. The main characters are all insufferable, bloated buttheads.
I mean, my thoughts on this chapter were, it was good to read about someone that isn't Tanner Sloan, because this is the first time that the book follows Calyx.
Yeah, it is. And it's real nice to have that release of tension away from those two.
You know, the change up was good, and like you said, the lighthearted blue collar comedy was exactly what the book needed at this point.
Yeah. And if you played the game too, you knew that Spender was an uptight wad, and that he was in some way involved in politicking to take stuff away from the Krogans. You already knew he was a bad dude.
Yeah. And
it was funny to see him pulled out of his comfort zone, because he had no idea what they were doing.
Yep.
But you also see the beginning of him laying his plans and basically art of the dealing, how he's going to maximize his possible gains from this situation. And he starts to promise, I think he promises drinks, right? But the drinks turn out to be barbecue sauce.
No, he promises something special.
That's what it is. And it turns out to be a case of barbecue sauce.
Earth barbecue sauce, yep.
Yeah. Dinosaur barbecue, right from here in Syracuse, probably.
Probably not.
Oh. At that point, that institution would be like 400 years old.
Yeah.
Plus 600 to get to Andromeda. So yeah, I mean, I like this one, but I hate Spender so much in the game and in the book. I mean, more than
God,
tan.
the book makes him worse.
If there's anybody that I could vent just to save a lot of trouble, it would be Spender. Just vent him right out the airlock.
You sound like Sloane.
I don't care. In this case, she's right. But I mean, if you put a million monkeys together with a million typewriters, eventually you're going to get Shakespeare. So, vent him. And I thought the book really benefits from adding a third point of view here.
Yeah.
Because, man, I was sick of the other two. For 14, 15, 16, I combined the three because I read them right in one big chunk, and I didn't have a whole lot to say to distinguish them. So I can read what I've got, and you can add to it if you want.
All right,
cool. So through 14, 15, and 16, we learn that the Scourge is dangerous, again, and that it cuts through material, and it also has a negative effect on electronics. All stuff that you'd know if you played the game, because if you get too close to it, your own shields and everything goes wacky.
Yep.
So there's a minor crisis that occurs, and a Solarian and also a Krogan. Are forced to die together when they go out to try and affect it, and a line or a chunk of the Scourge. Yeah, Nacho. They get killed. Now, what you see is some interspecies loving going on here, because the Krogan goes out to save the Solarian, even though they've got this deep-seated racial hatred.
That was a very well-written portion.
I like this portion, and that's kind of why I chunked them together, is because it does click together.
Yeah, you've got the the Solarian and the Krogan bantering back and forth, and it's not angry banter. It's
it's meaningful.
It's technician banter.
Yeah, and it characterizes them, and it kind of puts them in context in the world, and it is a well-written segment of the book. And the overall point here is that the Solarians and the humans who are on the life support team, and I think a couple Turians, have to go out on the outside of the Nexus, which again is very dangerous because the Scourge can come by and slice you to pieces. And they've got a small Krogan bodyguard that's basically there to help them haul everything back in. And I think they're trying to get through an airlock to get at new power nodes so they can start to restore power and life support.
Yeah.
But of course, Murphy's Law. The Scourge comes washing by, and they try to get back, and it looks like the Solarian's not going to make it, and the Krogan goes for him.
Yep.
And it all goes wrong anyway, of course, but it kind of balances the scales here. You see both sides sacrificing.
Yep.
So it's just a good segment of the book.
Yep. All right. So my thoughts on these three chapters, I'll kind of break them down because that's how I have them broken down here. Chapter 14. I thought it was a little abrupt to be changing into these side characters like this.
Yeah. But again, that does actually help in the long run.
It helps in the long run, but at this point in the book, it didn't seem to matter much, except Spender was in two of them, spreading rumors about the start of rationing. Yeah,
he continues to creep around and fearmonger. And again, if somebody had just doubled the gravity on him, or vented him, or he tripped over a live power line, or one of the Krogan who are around just smashed his skull, because it would have been funny. We could have saved so much pain and death. Yeah.
Chapter 15. The only thought I have here was while this portion was well written, this chapter 15 is where Nacho and the Krogan die.
Yeah.
Was I supposed to care about these two characters?
No, I don't think so. I think it's supposed to raise the stakes.
That were just introduced.
Yeah.
The previous chapter.
Yeah.
Like that. Why?
I agree. Although we do see two Krogan that recur throughout the book from here on out.
True.
The other two kind of come back and continue to inform things from the Krogan, but they're like R2-D2 and C-3PO.
Yeah.
They're side characters that occasionally make semi-funny comments.
Yep. Chapter 16, I had a lot of problems with Chapter 16.
Break it down.
It was not much to break down. It was a page and a half long.
Fair point.
It could have been a page break for 15. There was no reason to separate that into a chapter.
I agree. That's why they all got lumped together. It wasn't worth doing its own little thing on 16.
I was dumbfounded when I read that. I had to put the book down.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. All right, chapter 17.
In 17, they decide to start rationing. And so this, again, would have been an interesting mechanic to explore, because in the game, it does have you looking for resources. But in the game, it's more of a collectathon. It's kind of meaningless, just like planet scanning and digging around for minerals in the first three games.
Yep.
Doesn't really affect anything, So I think this could have been a good way to integrate that and make it more meaningful. But why, I had to ask, in a state of an emergency, are they still not scouting with the shuttles? That is what was occurring to me as they're talking about rationing, as Tan gives his awful, awkward, insulting speech.
Oh,
why
God.
are they not using the shuttles to scout? Now, I'm surprised, frankly, that they have FTL drives on these shuttles, because that makes each one of these effectively a starship. Not just a spaceship, but a starship, right? They're like the runabouts. Is it runabouts in Star Trek? The little ones? Yeah, the runabouts, right? The little tiny shuttles that the Enterprise poops out once in a while.
They just call them shuttles.
No, somebody calls them runabouts. But anyway, yeah. So the shuttles, though, from the Enterprise, they're no different than that. It's a tiny truck-sized cylinder, and it's got an FTL drive, apparently.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they didn't start scouting beforehand. Now, of course, we're going to get to that, because I almost...
Actually, that was brought up earlier in the book.
It was, but they decided not to do it.
Because Sloane...
Oh.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't explain why they're not doing it.
Sloane wanted all the shuttles available in case of evacuation.
Where would they go? They have no destination. It doesn't, and that's the fundamental here, is that it doesn't make any sense. And I had an issue with it then, and I've got an issue with it now.
I had an issue with it throughout the entire book.
My understanding is that by this point, they've been awake for several months.
Yep.
Right, like 10 weeks maybe, 12 weeks maybe.
I think 12 weeks.
And they haven't done any scouting. They haven't even checked on the Golden Worlds.
Nope.
Right? Now, they could have taken one shuttle, because one shuttle is not going to make a grand difference if you're saving 8 people. We know they've got enough shuttles that they can send out several teams and still have spares, which is we're going to get to that. I have a huge issue, and that was what was like rebounding through my head is, why aren't they talking about, we're going to ration, but on the flip side, we're also going to start exploring. So the period of rationing is hopefully not just a terminal period before we stick you back half-starved in your casket. Instead, what we get is this another awkward example of how bad and ill-suited Director Tan is to directing anything.
However, in Tan's slight defense, Spender wrote the speech.
Yeah, he did. And we're not getting political on the topic, so I've got to stop that idea in my head. But yeah,
Spender wrote the speech.
It sounds a lot like a political speech that would have been delivered in the last 3 months of 2016 in America. Honestly, from any of the candidates.
Yeah.
They were all awful. It sounds like one of those awkward, jilted, I'm slightly off script, but still kind of on point. But this is another thing that occurred to me too, and I was hoping that you could clarify this for me, because I didn't really think to look when I was playing the game. But is the Nexus like literally encased in the Scourge? Because they make it seem like it's like tangled in there, like a kitten in a ball of yarn.
I think by the time the Hyperion arrives, they've moved it, because there's almost no Scourge around the Nexus in the game to speak of.
That's what I thought too. It looked like it was at the edge of the solar system. So at the time of the book,
in the game, it's orbiting a planet.
Yes, the cloudy planet looks pretty on my Ultra graphics.
It still looks pretty on high too.
Mm-hmm, I bet. Okay, so it must have been like relatively encased then, because I kept thinking, why don't you move it? Why don't you move it? But I know they're low power, and if they're encased and they don't want it to rip through,
Well, they've also had to eject the core, which means main engines are.
That's why I figured they weren't moving.
Probably going to be offline, and firing the engines is going to take a lot of power that they don't have to spare right now.
Potential partial solution: vent Spender. The force of gas moving out of the air chamber, and also the force of his mass, would give it a little nudge. It would be the final saving grace. Spender moves this thing 5 feet a year. Worth it.
My thoughts on Chapter 17 were expletive Spender.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Expletive Spender.
Spender.
All right, Chapter 18.
We're halfway through now, right?
I think so.
But the second half of the book is shorter than the first half because of bloated chapters and bloated speeches.
Yeah, we are. Chapter 18, that is halfway through the book.
So, as if on cue, they decide to send the shuttles out. And I almost think that the idiocy of Tan's speech was deliberately written to make you think, like, why aren't you exploring? Why aren't you going out? And I think that's what the point was. Because the effect was definitely like, oh, finally, And so here we are. We're going out. We get a little nice pacing choice here in terms of getting things rolling all of a sudden because, man, they needed to get rolling.
See, I had the opposite in this chapter.
Really?
Yeah. And it was down to Edison's, up down mood. She was happy then depressed, happy then depressed, happy then depressed, and it killed the pacing for me.
Yeah, I get that totally. I think in terms of the general pacing of the book, it was finally just the exasperation of, can we get somewhere, please? Oh, now we've got a plan. Whoo! Like, ready to move on. But yes, Addison continues to be terrible.
Yeah.
She needs to see a clinician because her brain was damaged.
Yeah.
And the evidence is walking, talking, and making bad decisions constantly. I was really surprised that Kandros could be, he was a former Spectre, right? Or was in Spectre training, decided to just wander away from security duties here without getting a verbal go-ahead from his superior.
Well, to be fair, him being prior Spectre, because yes, he is a prior Spectre. He got tired of dealing with the Council.
So did I. That's why I killed him in Mass Effect 1.
Yeah, so did I.
No shame.
Nope. He's also used to blazing his own path because he was a Spectre for 15 years, I believe.
Okay, so he had a long tenure of being his own man.
Yeah,
I still think it's real strange.
I could be getting characters mixed up. We both could be getting characters mixed up.
Avitus Rex, right? You might be confusing him with the Turian Pathfinder.
Yeah, I might be. I don't know if Kandros was a Spectre.
We want to be very careful and not say they all look the same, so therefore they all are the same, because I'm pretty sure that's racist. But in this case, the characters are actually pretty similar.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they really are.
Which is fine, because I still like Kandros. I just thought this was a very strange decision that he didn't get a verbal go-ahead.
Yeah.
Especially since he must be aware to some degree of the lack of coordination in the upper tiers.
We should also discuss that in this chapter, Sloane is just off on her own again.
Yep.
Off with the Krogan.
Yep. After Tan's decision, she decides to take 4 days off with Kesh.
Ripping and tearing at the station.
Yeah, doing nothing productive. Again, she's got a job, which is security. She can't do that if she's out of radio range.
Yep.
So, again, incompetent.
And that's how the decision for the shuttles got made, was
yes.
Sloane wasn't there.
Yes. That's how a lot of decisions get made from here on out. Because I think Tan shows up with Addison, and he's like, she's not here, so let's just make every decision we possibly can, right?
Yeah. Tan kind of backdoors it again with Addison, and is like, well, Sloane says we shouldn't bother her with small decisions, so let's make small decisions. But in reality, these are major decisions that will affect security.
Yep.
Like, let's send out 8 shuttles.
Mm-hmm.
And
let's send out our second most senior security
officer. Yeah. So that brings us to chapter 19.
Yeah. That Sloane returns from her trip to discover that Tan and Addison had teamed up against her to take action. She completely overreaches in the typical way.
Yep. I mean, my thoughts on that were Sloane's anger was a tad over the top, but understandable.
It always is. It's understandable, but it's over the top. She's a juvenile.
Yep. Doesn't she start throwing stuff?
Yeah. She has a complete temper tantrum.
Okay.
I think she starts swearing and stomping around, and they're like, whoa, it's a little much. And yeah, it is a little much. But again, Tan's directorship is a little much.
Yeah. This whole book's a little much.
She continues to demonstrate that her fundamental unfitness for a security job.
Yep.
She should have been like, okay, the decision's made. There's nothing I can do. I'm not worrying about my not boyfriend Kandros is going to be away for several months. And what are we going to do now? And also removing these 2 people from positions of power since they clearly can't be trusted. She doesn't need to make decisions as security director, but she can also enforce an order as a security director to make sure that people who are capable decision makers do that. And she can remove concerns about her own fitness as a leader by removing her own vote. She can say, I'm not going to vote, but you're not fit.
Yeah.
And we're going to put, A, we're going to have a vote, and B, we're going to have the engineering is going to have a key here. Key vote. What?
I hear some very strange noises.
Mario Kart. So, I mean, yeah, Chapter 19 was just disappointing. And then I lumped 20, 21, 22 again.
Okay,
kind of flow.
Yeah, I've got them separated.
I started to lump here because I started to read in like quick segments.
Honestly, I've got everything lumped up or I've got everything separated until chapter 25, and then I just lumped the end of the book all in one.
Okay, so I can give the overview for the 3, and then we can break them down with your notes.
Yeah.
So in 21, 22, 20, 21, 22, we see, and this is another like segment of the book that feels like it was written in very close coordination. But we see the exhaustion and the desperation of the Nexus crew growing as fear of looming rationing and fear of the prospect of scouts failing begins to boil to the surface. So each chapter just kind of builds on the stress of the next.
Yep.
Overall, I thought the authors were smart to make the oh boy,
can't read your own writing.
Yeah, the authors are smart to make the perp part of the life support crew because we get one of the Asari life support crew stealing.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I thought that was smart because so far all we've heard about the life support crew are that they're like straight A, best people ever, they're freaking awesome and are totally trustworthy, and then lo and behold, one of the Asari is stealing. And she's doing it for a good reason.
Yeah.
Because why would you ever trust the people who are in charge who make the wrong decision at every possible juncture?
Yep.
So I thought that was smart. We also get an EOS reference, which is one of the levels in the game previously discussed.
Yeah.
We see that is it Kandros' team? I got a little unclear there.
Kandros' team is missing at this point.
Okay.
The 7th shuttle comes back.
Yeah, we get one of those chapters covers them going to EOS. Was that Kandros' team? I got a little lost.
Yes, it was Kandros' team that went to EOS. But on the way, they were able to come back. Because in one of the previous chapters, it talks about how they're entering the atmosphere and it's all irradiated, and then and then that portion of the chapter just abruptly stops.
Yeah, because we're not sure if they crashed.
Yep. And we get the 7th shuttle coming back to the Nexus, saying we failed. But we wanted to report back, but we're requesting permission to resupply and go out and look for Kandros' shuttle. Because we lost radio contact with them, and
were they attacked? Or were they just damaged?
I don't know.
It's not well described.
The book never explains. The book never says if Kandros comes back.
No, it doesn't. I was going to bring that up as one of the unanswered questions. What the heck happened to Kandros?
Yeah, because Kandros is the militia leader on the Nexus, isn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
He comes back. How though? I don't know. Maybe that'll be Mass Effect Andromeda, Nexus Uprising, Kandros' adventure. I don't know.
That's still too many colons.
I'm just gonna keep adding colons.
All right.
So I mean, as a lump set of chapters, it's okay. They're smart to do what they did in terms of beginning to sow the seeds of discontent here. I thought the EOS chapter was kind of interesting, but again, why wouldn't they just leave a little FTL comm buoy?
Yeah.
I know they got them because it becomes a collectathon in the game. They're little. So they could have just left the buoy.
Oh, yeah, those stupid things.
And if they just left the buoy, then they'd have known when you show up around EOS.
Yep.
Because that's the first planet you show up around after Habitat 7.
No, you go to the Nexus.
Oh, you do go to the Nexus?
It's Nexus. Tan sends you to EOS.
Well, still. They'd have met the Ket sooner. Sloan handles the entire ordeal poorly.
Very poorly.
And then all the way through. So, I mean, that's what I got for these 3.
All right.
A lot of development, but nothing positive, really.
Chapter 20. Not much of the story continues. Sloane's use of excessive force shows she's starting to come unhinged.
Yeah.
That's all I got on 2021. Sloane's wild character changes come through on this one, and she's suddenly calm, cool, and collected.
We got to turn her into the stoic pirate queen sometime here.
Yeah, but that happens multiple times throughout the book, where she's flying off the handle in one chapter, and in the next chapter she is just.
I'm above this.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's the characterization isn't great. My page 300 reflection was as a story, as a book that I'm reading, I'm into it and I'm reading rapidly, but I continue to have like enormous uncertainties about the story.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of this, and I'm 100% convinced at this point, it's an idiot plot.
Yeah.
And it's more of, now I want to see how they're going to bring this flush to the game. If this is a book that I was reading on my own, I'd have abandoned it at this point because I can't handle, I can't brook such wild character turns and such poor plotting. I mean, it really is, there's a lot of just forcing it to work the way that it does. And it leaves a lot of questions. So I'm digging it as a story that's bringing me to the beginning of the game. I am not digging it as a book.
Yeah.
You know.
Chapter 22, Tan shows a little concern. Swiftly shot down by Addison's continued poor attitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's...
I got nothing to add. The three of them are terrible. You know, if you vent them along with Spender, you might make 20 feet a year.
All right. Chapter 23.
We get the origin of the titular uprising as Calyx, the head of the life support, again realizes that the Nexus leadership is without a plan and is also lying to them because he calls and he sends a text message to Sloane and says, when is the next ship coming back? Because he has it on good authority that it came back and that they failed. And she says, we're still waiting on it or something like that.
He asked he asked for a status update on the shuttles and Sloane just sends back nothing.
Oh, it's nothing, yeah.
Nothing.
And so, I mean, he knows that they're lying at that point. So again, I think that they made a good choice to just focus on developing this single life support team, because if this was spread out across plumbing and electrics and everything else, I think it would have been difficult to get why they're so frustrated. But since they choose to work with Calyx and the life support team, and to a much lesser degree, Kesh and her Krogan, which are all working together, I think we can see more effectively the tension and the frustration with the lack of a plan and the bad decision making boiling. And at this particular moment, I felt like this is one of the clearest character moments. You can see Calyx go, well, you can see the little like Turian mandibles twitch on his head as he goes, and then like stomps off because now he's got a plan.
Yep.
So I like this chapter overall.
I thought it was semi well written. However, I found that the cliche use of the life support crew that has already removed themselves from a similar situation in the Milky Way. Lazy.
Yeah, it is.
You know, it by this point in the book, it's already been explained why Calyx walked away from
the leaders on his Turian battleship that he was working on.
Yeah.
And this non-Turian crew, which surprised me.
Yeah.
The leaders made a bad decision. They tried to pin it on him, and he basically said,
"Nope, I'm done.
Done with you guys."
And his crew followed.
His crew followed him because he stood up for him. And it is very much, it's the same thing. So, of course, you know which way he's going to decide. And in that way, it is lazy. I agree with you on that. I just think it's effective because if they had tried to spread this across many different teams, I'm not sure how you could have made that work without much more time being spent to develop those personalities.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's getting the most for the least, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Have we met Reg and his husband yet? I forgot to write that down.
We met Reg. His husband, is he the botanist or is the husband the botanist?
His husband's the botanist. Okay. Reg is part of the life support crew.
We've definitely met Reg because he was there during the Nacho scene. I think he's the one that calls him Nacho. But I don't think it's been enormously expanded at this point.
Okay.
What brings that to your mind?
Just all the small, minuscule details, trying to figure out where they fit, because I don't remember where they all were. That's how unmemorable this book is.
Yeah. Points
of it are, but the actual storytelling and where they're placed, I don't remember.
Yeah. I mean, you remember the fact that he's a life support engineer. He's got a husband who's a botanist, and he doesn't want to like wake him up or something like that. You know, it's a tender relationship, but
yeah,
specifically where it fits in the plot of the book, it doesn't really make any sense.
Nope.
All right, shoved in there. So
I'm getting really exasperated.
Okay, cool. Let's go through a couple chapters quickly then.
Yeah.
Tan, Addison, and Sloan in Chapter 24 announce the failure of the Scouts and the mandatory return to stasis of non-essential personnel, which, if you've been following along this far, you know is going to be the straw that breaks a camel's back. And Calyx responds by then going pirate and announcing over the Nexus-wide PA, like, basically, say no.
Yep.
Which would be the sensible thing to do. So, one thing I was wondering is why the heck wasn't he contacted in advance, given that he's, a senior personnel? Why wouldn't they tell him? Well, as it turns out later on, they didn't tell him because they didn't feel like it.
Yep.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Chapter 24, I thought Addison did a lot better with the speech than Tan ever could have.
She did.
Spender's back.
Yep. Spender's guilty. Quite obviously, they spent a lot of time establishing this.
And now and at this point, the armory is suddenly unguarded.
Okay, we have the beginning of another unanswered question right here. When Calyx and his crew go in, and I reread this chapter to make sure, they don't kill anybody, right?
It's explained later.
It's not explained well. Spender's the one that kills him, right?
No.
Who kills him then?
Calyx does. Calyx and his crew.
They don't shoot and kill anybody. Not yet. Not at the armory doors.
It's not in this. It's not in the chapter.
It's not anywhere in the next couple chapters. I went back and read.
I believe it's when Sloan.
Spender says the doors are unguarded. They walk right in and take everything. What happens is those guards are supposed to be drawn away. So what happens is he sends Reg or whichever one of his fanatics to go set the fire in the life support area in the botany room. And the guards run.
Yeah,
now bear with
right.
me, okay? Because I went and I reread this because this really bothered me. He draws the guards away. He's like, go do whatever you got to do. And Reg is like, well, of course, I'm going to set a fire with our only food source, which doesn't make any sense.
Sets a fire in hydroponics.
Which draws the guards away. So they walk into it unopened. Or unguarded.
Unguarded.
The doors are open. For whatever reason, again, they should have locked it down completely.
Calyx has got the code that they...
Manual lock. But anyway, they don't kill anybody. Those guards are drawn away. The only person who's there other than them is Spender. Now, those bodies are found later on because it becomes one of the points that Tan uses to decide to go as hard as they do against the Resistance.
Yeah.
The fact they murdered those two guards. But they didn't murder those two guards. We know exactly where they went from that armory because it talks about it. Nobody kills those guards. Who's still there and watching and playing both sides? Spender. Who killed those two guards?
Probably Spender.
Probably Spender. It's never answered. In fact, it's never even revisited. It's like Kandros. But somebody killed those two people. And it's definitely not this crew. It can't be. Because those guards weren't even there when they walked in the armory.
It shows you how memorable the end of the book is.
Yep. So anyway, I felt there was no reason that this couldn't have just been a defection or a regular assault. I didn't feel like Spender was necessary to be spidering here.
No.
Unless they needed somebody to pin the murder on. But the game doesn't even bring that up, and I was really hoping it would address it. 25, we see the life support crew raid the armory and attack to the hangar, leading to several deaths. Not a badly written combat scene, pretty tight.
Same thing, well-written firefight. Whichever one of the authors has been writing the actual combat scenes
does a good job.
Does a really good job with them.
I got a small quote that I would like to read you real quickly.
Okay.
I feel like it is the best most Mass Effect NPC description of all time.
Okay.
An older human, squat and powerfully built with a rather awful-looking pencil mustache, incongruously framed by bushy eyebrows and overgrown sideburns. Love it. Looks like all of my shepherds of all time, except without eyeshadow. Moving on. In 25, Spender's complicit. He's right there. He hides in a storage locker.
He walks right by one of the guards and knocks him over. And
nobody bothers to question him.
Nope.
I thought it was short.
Calyx thinks about it, trying to figure out what Spender's game is,
but decides to try and use him. So I felt like the uprising has finally begun here at the very edge of the book because we've got less than 100 pages, I think, at this point.
Hold on. Chapter 20.
Oh, no, we got 150 left.
Is it?
About 150, yeah. So while he checks on that, 26 and 27 I lumped together, and I feel your pain here. We got a full-scale riot erupting, and Calyx is trying to evade Sloan. We get a decent brawl again, more firefights later on. She's no longer closer across these two chapters. It's effectively wasted space as far as the book goes.
Yep.
Tan tries to pin it on Sloan, and then suddenly it's very clear why Sloan is going to end up the Pirate Queen on Kadara. because now instead of dealing with the actual rebels, Tan is busy trying to fire his director of security. 28, we get Sloane and her crew spreading out to find Calyx, and again, I don't know why they weren't stationed out there to begin with. The book kind of blows it off as, well, that was dumb of me to not have people out there and to trust them.
No, Sloane's reasoning was she didn't want a security presence
To make it worse.
And she had them in one room to dispatch as needed.
Idiot plot.
Yeah.
28, Sloane and her crew spread out to find Calyx, and they get the now riding Nexus under control, but not really. They discover that Calyx has taken control of the maintenance ways, and they are driven off by an angry mob. I like this scene, just because I love the hive mind mentality. It's just a fist fight that just turns against them. Before they can catch him, Sloane then goes to talk to Calyx, and another bad meeting with Tan. Every meeting with Tan from here on out is terrible. And Spender, he's also there, being a little wiener in the background.
Yep.
Sloane decides to offer herself up to Calyx to negotiate. I thought that was a questionable choice, but I guess it makes sense in terms of the plot.
A bit smarter of a decision, in my opinion, than the rest of the decisions she's made.
If she had Kandros, he could have gone.
Yeah.
Chapter 29. Oh, you know what? I came back to this idea again. Before we move on to 29, I just got this note, and it's recurred about 10 times through my notes so far. Couldn't they have just dropped the oxygen in the room? We're on a space station. They could have just dropped the oxygen and knocked everybody out. And
well, they can't now because the life support team is in rebellion. I'm playing devil's advocate here, but
they have Kesh. Kesh is senior to him. I know he's got the codes, but I'm sure there's got to be a manual access lever somewhere to control the airflow. There's got to be. Chapter 29, Tan and Spender concoct a plan to wake Nakmor Morda up. She's the chieftain of the Nakmor Krogan clan.
Yep, she's the clan leader.
I felt like this was the other shoe that you're waiting to drop. They had to have that third party in there. You know they were coming because they kept talking about how dangerous it would be.
Yep.
And the situation continues to spiral out of control. Spender politics and tries to become named like chief of staff at the last second.
Yep.
And Kesh then unwittingly gives up her one chance to present the Krogan with a powerful face here. And I thought this is when Kesh gets in on the idiot plot. How would she not see? I know she doesn't know what Spender says at the last second there, but how would she not see that this is a chance to reorient the situation and stop it from spiraling out of control? Why on earth would Morda wake up and be happy to see Spender and then do what they want? She knows Spender's not going to work in her interest. So if you got nothing else to add, I want to skim forward.
Go for it.
All right.
I from chapter 26 to the end of the book, I literally have one sentence of notes.
Another thing that I've got here is that I was surprised that they continued to try to make the leadership surprised that anybody was upset about the decisions being made. Tan's inability and Addison's inability and Sloane's inability to predict how the people on the Nexus were going to react to being told basically, we failed and now you need to die again temporarily and trust that we're going to bring you back and that you're not just going to fade out.
I know.
Is unreal. People have no reason not to riot. And returning to Cryo, even though Cryo does make sense, in theory they're going to awaken to a fresh start, but that relies on trusting these three idiots to get them through.
Who have shown
that they're
not to be trusted.
So I don't understand why they would underestimate it. But the 400 pages here, although it's entertaining, and despite some compelling character interaction, it gets really hard to ignore how stupid the characters are. Like, to the point where you're going, what are you doing? And it made it hard to sit there and read the last, 75 pages of the book. Some of the characters started stupid, like Sloane and Addison, while others, like Kesh, Tan, and Calyx, just seem to have dropped 50 IQ points over the last couple chapters.
I agree.
Kesh in particular, who seemed to be the only adult in the room, by and large.
And is now
an angry teenager.
Yep.
Chapter 30, Spender meets with Morda, and I actually kind of like this chapter.
I did too. This was hilarious.
I was so let down when I met Morda in the game after reading this chapter. Her voice is so high-pitched, and she's so distant. I wanted her to get up in your face the way that Rex gets up in your face in the game, or even Drac gets up in your face just in-game. I was very let down by the game's characterization of Morda. Or Grunt, yeah.
Grunt was better characterized than than Morta was here.
Not here in the book. I thought
in game.
Yeah, in game, it's just this like high pitched, reedy Krogan lady up on a throne,
leading to a terribly animated fist fight.
Yes,
that was disappointing.
One more failing of the game, but I thought the book did a great job of characterizing her as like this over the top, like super heavy metal Krogan
chieftain.
I was really hoping she was going to kill Spender, but she doesn't, because instead he promises to give her political power by giving her a seat on the council, which of course he can't deliver.
He has no power to do.
No, he can't deliver that, but Morta doesn't know that, and she's not smart enough, or is an idiot, part of the idiot's brigade now, and decides to agree to it. Spender's the key here. He is the chief idiot.
Yep.
But Morta is sufficiently terrifying, and I like this chapter. And then we rush into the climax. So, anything else to stop me from blowing through this real quick?
Nope. Like I said, I have one sentence for the end of the book.
So, chapter 31, Sloane is interrogated by Calix, and we get some decent dialogue, who reveals that his rebellion was ultimately caused by the lying on Tan, Addison, and Sloane's behalf. Even though she tries to help him to reach some sort of detente, the Krogan, meanwhile, bust in, and all hell breaks loose. The firefight is pretty well written.
Yep.
But Sloane decides to rebel then, rather than to continue working for Tan, which makes a lot of sense.
Sloane stabs the Krogan in the eye.
Yes, she does. Yeah.
I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yep. The Krogan is, the whole Krogan wave is written pretty impressively. It makes you really kind of itch for like a Krogan Rachni war book.
Yeah.
Which would fit right into the Warhammer 40k universe.
Oh,
yeah. It would be that level of over the top and violent. Calix dies suddenly. He's a victim of a sniper round. Sloane is then made the de facto leader for reasons that the plot requires rather than make any sense. And
Reg dies here, doesn't he?
Yeah.
In a hail of bullets.
Yeah.
For reasons.
We really, the book begins to force
reasons
the plot into the shape that the game requires.
Yep.
And it really suffers in terms of meaning. I mean, the combat is written well, but the plot is dumb.
Yep.
It's dumb.
Oh, yeah.
Though you spend the last 5 chapters of this book going, what are you doing?
Kesh comes in very angry.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah.
She suddenly becomes the adult again.
Yep. That's the last note here is they flee the Krogan, but then they end up getting captured by Kesh, and she's correspondingly angry to see Sloane, for whatever reason, the leader.
Morta also gives her a choice. I feel that's noteworthy. Kind of an unspoken choice, like they lock eyes and
Red Rover, or else.
Yeah. I thought that was an interesting plot point, but all in all, it was pointless.
I kind of missed biotics in this section. There really weren't very many.
No.
I thought that would have been more interesting. And I guess Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 kind of spoiled me on the fact that you've always got a bunch of biotics nearby. And Rex is a rare Krogan with biotic powers.
Yes. He's actually referenced in the book.
Yes. Or not Rex as one of the rare, like, what would they call them? Battle Masters? Or... it's not common for them to have biotic powers. And I didn't realize that.
Neither did I.
And Drax doesn't either, now that I think about it. Drax just has combat and tech powers.
Yeah.
So I thought, just a little note, that I thought there was a dearth of biotics in this particular combat. But we were kind of treated to some pretty good biotics earlier on. So, bully for us, I suppose. 32 and 33, Sloane talks to the surviving rebels after they're basically butchered by Morta into accepting defeat so that they will survive.
Yep.
That's kind of the gist of this. She realizes that she's supposed to be an adult and then helps negotiate. And of course, Tan and Addison decide to offer her a pretty weighty choice here. Either accept going back into the cryo caskets to be tried at a later date when things are more settled, or you can have a shuttle, which again, they weren't even willing to part with before.
No.
And
they're not willing to part with now.
Yeah. And they don't expect her to offer it because they know it will be suicide. And if Sloane, for whatever reason, here at the last second, makes the obvious decision to do the wrong thing because that's how she's characterized. Yep. And she takes the impossible thing and makes it work, as we learn later in the game. We don't know how or why. I think that would have been a more interesting book. But they take exile.
Yep. The last, and to sum up the last 2 chapters,
I don't have anything written. I got so frustrated.
It's the prep of them getting the shuttles, them getting the shuttles ready and leaving.
Yeah, that's it. We see the division here at the end of the Civil War, the Uprising, and we also learned that Spender can't actually make good on his promise.
Yeah,
and that causes some problems.
And that causes the Krogan to leave.
Yep. That brings us current to where the game is.
Yep.
Krogan are gone. We've got no defenses. The exiles are spreading all over the place. And we don't know where Kandros is. We still don't really know who murdered those two people that caused the entire thing to explode this way.
Yep.
Tan and Addison have no repercussions. They're just allowed to be in charge. And
Kesh decides to stay.
Yeah. For reasons that make diplomatic sense, they need to have some sort of connection.
Yep.
But I mean, that's it. It wraps up very suddenly and very stupidly.
I want to quote the very last line of the book that Sloane says. This is the very last line. Let's see about taming this other side.
Yeah, it was a lame last line, especially given the intensity and the aggressive belligerence that she had shown when she's like, "This is my ship, and you're going to do things my way."
Yeah.
Right before that, and then all of a sudden, it's like this look to the stars and a little sparkle in their eyes, and this hopeful moment where you choose the Paragon option instead of Renegade.
All right. So my thoughts, like I said, I have one sentence from chapter 26 to the end of the book. It's the same as the rest of the book.
Bad decisions lead to bad results, lead to bad decisions.
I want to talk about the story arc. I don't know if we talked about it. There really isn't one.
Mm-mm.
Like,
things are bad. They stay bad. Then they get a little worse.
Then the climax of the book, and then the book ends.
And then things go back to being bad.
It's not an arc. It's a spike.
There's no character development. There's no character arcs. There's character development, but there's no character arcs. Nobody learns anything from this except that Sloane quits.
Yeah.
That's it. Spender's allowed to get away with it, even though it's obvious that he was monkeying around. Anybody who did grow as a character is murdered or left out in space unanswered.
So what are your overall thoughts on the book? Like, did this add anything to the Mass Effect Andromeda universe? Meaningful, at least?
That it's not. I'm staring off into space, unable to come up with a complete answer here. Yeah, it fleshes out a kind of critical part of the background context for the game, but in terms of expanding what the game is meaningfully, it does it with the same panache and adeptness of the Star Wars prequels. It explains things you didn't need explained. It explains them in a way that makes you feel stupid, and it leaves you unsatisfying. This is the midichlorians of
Mass Effect. Is Sloane the Jar Jar Binks of the Mass Effect world?
No, because she's not a terrible racist character.
So that's Tan.
Oh my god.
Tan is Jar Jar Binks.
No, this book doesn't add anything meaningful to Mass Effect Andromeda.
Okay.
No, it adds things, but it doesn't add things that are meaningful and are net positive.
I had one meaningful thing added for me. And I think we talked about it, but I want to go into it a little more depth.
Okay,
in
fair
depth.
enough.
The post-credits scene, right after you defeat the Archon and everything like that, you go back to the Hyperion and you're wandering around one of the rooms talking to your crew. You get to choose who represents the rest of the galaxy. I chose the Moshae.
I made a different choice. Yeah, we did talk briefly about this, but let's revisit this.
Yeah, I chose the Moshae because I knew I had yet to finish the book when I finished the game.
The Moshae is the high Angara priestess / scientist.
Yes.
Scholar.
And I chose her because I knew it would piss Tan off.
I chose Morta.
Had I actually finished the book before I finished the game, I would have made the same choice. Because, one, because it would piss Tan off. Two, because Morta would get her place on the council that she was promised.
That was a huge part of why I decided to do that. Because I was going to go with Moshae until I thought about it. But it doesn't feel like a meaningful moral choice in the game. It's an afterthought. And if you just close the game at the credits, you'd never have seen it.
Yeah.
In fact, you had to play through a significant chunk of it. So our central question for this podcast is to determine whether or not the books add anything meaningful to the game and to the series that it takes place in.
The answer is unequivocally no.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't need to be explained. It was fine the way that it was, and when you shine this kind of light on it, you show how transparent and thin it is.
Yep.
All the characters turn out to be idiots, even when I don't think they would have been. I think Sloane Kelly would have been a lot more interesting if I didn't know that she was how stupid her decisions were and how terrible a fit she was for the job. If I didn't know that Gene Garson didn't know how to hire, if I didn't know that the entire initiative had the worst human resources department because they continued to hire the wrong people. At the end of the day, and there were parts where I liked it and I was into it, but then I would just hit this moment where you're like, why aren't we sending scout ships? Why are you awakening everybody? Why hasn't Tan been vented out the airlock? Why is anybody giving Spender the time of day?
A majority of the book, I felt the same way. Confused, angry. I wanted to throw it. In fact, success. All right.
Would you recommend this book to anybody?
No.
Would you recommend this book to your enemies?
Yes, because I want my enemies to suffer through this the way I did. On a more positive note, what is the next game and book that we are doing?
A much better game called Dead Space, the first one, which is incredible and has one of the best UIs of any video game I've ever played. It's got one of the best in-game universes. It's a hilarious runoff of Scientology in a great way. It's a sci-fi horror game that is rated M, just like Mass Effect Andromeda. So it is not for those of you who are young of ears.
Faint of heart.
Or faint of heart, yeah, it's a horror game. So I'm looking forward to playing it. I'm actually going to start playing it tonight. The book is called Dead Space Martyr. And there are several Dead Space books that have come out. I think there's also Dead Space Ascension because every video game has an Ascension version of it.
There's also Cataclysm, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
That book takes place after Martyr.
Cool. So we're going to do Martyr. We may or may not come back to do Cataclysm, but we can promise nothing because one of us might die in this room if one of these books is bad enough. So I'm looking forward to playing the game. I'm starting it tonight.
Yep, I am too. I got it downloaded last night in preparation for playing today.
Sweet.
However, I will warn you, it is very, very poorly optimized.
Did you notice how funky the controller, or just the controls in general, felt on the PC?
No, I haven't played any of it yet.
Okay, for me, it's playing a little weird, so I'm going to have to tinker with mouse settings probably. I might have to go into Steam and adjust the way the controls are.
Oh, see, you're playing it on Steam. I'm playing through Origin.
Oh.
I got it for free on Origin at some point,
fair enough.
So I'm not going to buy a $20 game if I've got it for free.
No, I got it through a Humble Bundle years ago for probably $3 or $4. But yeah, so we're doing Dead Space next. So when this episode airs, which should be September?
Yes.
Or the very end of August?
Yes.
I think September.
Early September.
You will have about 2 weeks to read Dead Space Martyr, which is a substantially shorter book than Mass Effect Andromeda Nexus Uprising, Part 1.
100 pages.
It's 100 pages, almost to the page, shorter. You can do that. 2 weeks, read a book. You are much closer.
The game, I believe, the campaign is about 8 hours.
8 hours, yeah. And I'm not going to be playing it on a harder mode. I'm going to play the game to re-see. I've already played it twice.
See, that's where you and I differ. I will be seeing the second half of this game through Virgin Eyes.
Ooh, I am jealous of you because I love the second half of the game. First half is a little slow, a little creepy crawly. Second half gets good.
I believe that's why I couldn't get through because the game started so slow.
Have you played Dead Space 2?
Nope.
Really?
I have not played any of the Dead Space games.
It's one of my favorite games.
Yeah, I haven't played any of them. I'm looking forward to it because it is something vastly different from what I've been playing recently. Mass Effect and...
I'm looking forward to a shorter game.
And
it's a huge difference.
And Mass Effect, because before Andromeda released, I played through all...
I played through 2 of them.
I played through all 3 games.
I biked through 2 of them. I'm 800 miles into the Mass Effect series right now. So, and then after that, we're doing...
Borderlands.
I'm
not looking forward to Borderlands.
The book or the game?
Both.
The books are by John Shirley.
No. Doesn't mean anything to me.
John Shirley is a historical fiction writer, but he also wrote the BioShock novel that was very good.
Never read.
So I from my end, I can tell you I will look forward to reading John Shirley books.
Okay. I've played the game. I don't know if I've ever beaten the game. Because Borderlands is a collectathon. Collectathon and fetch quests.
I wonder if we can co-op through Borderlands.
Maybe.
Do you have it on Steam?
No, I haven't.
Fudge.
Xbox 360.
Bummer. I have it on Steam. If we co-op through it, we could go a lot faster.
We could. Maybe I'll pick it up on Steam. Because
I might have a spare copy of it.
For Steam?
Yeah. Let me look into that.
All right.
I might have.
And then after that one, it's Star Wars Force Unleashed.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I am too.
We're going like low, high, low.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to. I've got Force Unleashed just sitting on my bookshelf, on my bedstand bookshelf that's right next to my bed. So when I lay my little head down on my pillow and I go to sleep night, I've got the books right there and I can think about them. I've picked that book up a couple times and read the back. It sounds like it's going to be intense.
Awesome. I played the game years ago.
I've never finished it. I know how it ends, but I've never finished it.
I finished it. I was kind of disappointed with the ending when I did. I
kind of remember how it ends, so don't go there.
I don't exactly remember how it is. I just remember having a feeling of disappointment. Maybe this time around it'll be different.
And then we're doing Halo.
Halo Reach.
That's going to be fun. I'm actually biking through Halo CE right now.
Nice.
We're recording this back in May, so by the time that this comes out, I will be through the majority of the Halo games. But they actually bike too surprisingly well.
Oh.
They're probably going to be like 100, 150 miles a pop. But I did 533.6 miles in Mass Effect 2, so that's a lot shorter to go through a Halo game.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I really like it on the Xbox One. And actually, the Xbox One controller is more comfortable when you're biking. It's a little wider, so your wrists don't need to be quite as close together when you're gaming, and that gives you a wider profile to hold your weight up.
I've got a recumbent bike.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then after that, it's Ready Player One.
Yeah.
So we've got...
That one I am really looking forward to.
Yeah.
I
almost went back and reread that on my own right before we decided to do this.
On
my bookshelf.
Last night, Jen and I were going through my Kindle and I saw it and I so tempted to pick it up and read it, but I was like, no.
You gotta do Dead Space first.
I gotta do Dead Space, which should be coming next week.
Good.
By Friday at the latest.
Yep.
I believe it's in Oregon right now.
So the book's coming from Oregon, and you're going to play the game on Origin. The universe says things to you.
It does. Maybe I'll actually enjoy this.
Maybe.
Unlike Andromeda.
I get no apologies. I went through it too. I had high hopes for the book.
I had high hopes for the book. I had high hopes for the game.
I think a huge part of the problem is just that it's an open world.
Yeah.
And they waste too much time. Just like in the book, they waste too much time. I think next time I play it, I'm going to skip all the side stuff. I don't care, because it doesn't seem to matter how viable each planet is. It doesn't seem to have any effect once you settle the colony.
I'm wondering if it has something to... I wonder if it'll affect the next one, or...
Do I care?
I don't know.
I don't care. Next time, though, I'm not going to go with the default character. I'm going to make the ugliest individual.
You're going to make an Addison? I'm just getting a blank stare. That's all I'm getting.
My face is too tired for this. So we got books coming. You got your end. I would recommend reading it to keep up with it so that you can also scream along with us. Use your library. They should all be available through there. And keep an eye on our Twitter account, which is...
at Canon Fodder Pod.
And that's CANON.
Yep.
Keep an eye on our website, which is canonfodderpodcast.com.
We will be putting a review for Andromeda up, or at least I will.
The game?
Yep. As we play the games, that's one thing I would definitely want to put on there. I know we discuss it on here, but our main focus is the book, so I really can't go into the detail that I would like.
That's a good idea. I will help you with that.
Okay.
And it's about when this episode airs, it's about September. My new young adult fantasy book will be available on Kindle for a couple bucks, called The Snowfall Squire. I wrote it a couple years ago, right when I started grad school, and have been kind of tinkering with it since. So it's going to be available, should be available by the time this airs.
All
so
right.
Check that out.
I'm also tinkering with the idea of doing some Let's Plays.
Ooh.
I've got to get my PC set up a little more cohesive for that.
That would be cool.
I'm looking into maybe doing some Let's Plays. Definitely, probably a modded Minecraft play. I know a lot of people like watching those. I'm one of them. I'll watch.
I'm not reading the Minecraft books and playing the game with you.
No, I don't blame you.
Not doing it.
That's something I enjoy. That's my...
Don't want to destroy something beautiful.
But, yeah, I was thinking of doing some Minecraft Let's Plays, maybe, some other Let's Plays. Feel free to send me suggestions.
Yeah, and in general too, shoot questions in or corrections, and we will address them here. And I think the easiest way to do that is through Twitter. So it's at
Canon Fodder Pod.
CANON.
Yep.
That's it for this first episode. I think I got nothing else to say except that I was disappointed by this book.
I was too.
Just a little note.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
The Canon Fodder Podcast is produced and hosted by Travis Knight and Kyle New. Theme music composed by Lucas Knight. Logo designed by Thomas Rigney. Follow the Canon Fodder Podcast on Twitter at Canon Fodder Pod or contact us through our website, canonfodderpodcast.com. And that's CANON. If you like the show, leave us a review on your podcast provider of choice. Thanks for listening. Also, we apologize for the length of this episode. We know we said we were going to keep it to about 90 minutes, but there was just so much for this game and this book that needed to be discussed.
God.